Right, folks, this is a new podcast from the two mics, and I'm going to give you old energy boy, MG, to introduce it.
Yeah, we've edited out all the nonsense from Mike Parry, so it might be a bit shorter than usual.
Ha, 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 ha. The puffin will be in your back garden within years.
Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the two mics on talkSPORT. Mike Parry's got China on his mind this morning after it emerged that his beloved Newcastle might be sold to a consortium from that part of the world. Meanwhile, Pep Southgate's still the man of the moment as he tries to find John Stones a place in the England team. He still hasn't decided, by the way, who his number one goalkeeper is. We'll be addressing all this, plus Saturday night TV games in the Premier League. 08717 223344. We'll keep you updated on this fantastic Lions game down at Highlanders. Also coming up on the show, we'll be talking to TV Supervet, Noel Fitzpatrick, and we'll have another thrilling episode of Listography as well. You're listening to the two mics with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on talkSPORT. This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics. There's a thrilling game of rugby going on down in New Zealand. But first of all, it's time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
A very good morning to you, Mike. And I know that, in the rush of getting a show together, we all can make some, errors in our delivery and all that kind of stuff.
You found an error in the opener, have you?
My beloved Newcastle?
Yeah, it is your beloved Newcastle.
Well, it's not really.
Yeah, it is. You go on and on about how much you love Newcastle, about how you want to retire to Northumberland, about what a great place the big market is, and that beautiful bar that you went to once called the Shark Bar, where you'd think you'd never seen a woman in a miniskirt before, the way you were slobbering at the chops. You love Newcastle. There's no point in hiding it.
Listen, I have an affection for the northeast of England.
I have an affection for the northeast of England.
But in the text in which you delivered that opener, it clearly pointed to my beloved Newcastle.
Did I say your beloved Newcastle Football Club?
That's what people interpret Newcastle United Football Club.
I am the master
I'm not beloved
of
of the city of Newcastle or the football of Newcastle. I'm beloved of Everton as a football club. And
you don't like Newcastle.
I have an affection for Newcastle and the North East, and I just wanted to clear that up.
I just want to point out to you that you go on and on and on about Newcastle far more than you do about a place like Liverpool. You never go on about how great Liverpool is to go out in. You always go on about how great Newcastle is to go out in.
I think that's probably because I go to Liverpool a lot more often than I go to Newcastle. So,
I think it's because you used to work in Newcastle and you like Newcastle.
Yes, I do.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
And I don't see why you're shirking from it.
No, I'm not shirking from it at all. I just want to get things into perspective. But anyway, the point is, it's going to
get wound up by that. That's why I put it in.
It's going to be China on the Tyne, right? Which we'll get to a bit later in the show.
Is that like Fog on the Tyne, or is it to a different tune?
Fog on the Tyne is old main. Yeah. No, it's not the same one.
It wouldn't work because there's only one syllable in fog, isn't there?
Yes, that's absolutely right. But of course, the big football story, the one that we're going to be talking to people about is
John Stones.
Absolutely.
John Stones doesn't have a job currently playing for England.
Well, what I don't understand is this. So John Stones joins the England squad and old Pep Southgate decides that he knows a lot more.
Imagine having two managers called Pep that you have to work for.
I know, yeah.
What a nightmare.
Well, we only named Mr. Southgate Pep in fairness. That's our little joke.
In jest?
Yes, in jest, yeah.
Because he's nowhere near as good as Pep Guardiola.
Well, no, I didn't do it for that reason. I did it because I think they have a similar dignified style in the way of dressing and all that kind of stuff.
And they like to wave an imaginary yellow card on the touchline as well, don't they?
Wave the imaginary yellow card. Yeah. Now, what I was about to say to you is, so you let your player go in the case of Pep Guardiola, and John Stones is with the England squad for a number of days, 7, 8 days, something like that.
Yes.
Mr. Southgate says, I can see how to convert him into a defensive midfield player. Yeah. Does he then go back to Manchester City for the start of pre-season training and say to Guardiola, by the way, Pep, I played a bit of defensive midfield with England under Gareth Southgate, and I felt very comfortable. I'd like to do it here.
Well, I don't think
does a club manager have the right to turn a player from a club into some other player while he's with the international squad?
Did it not happen with Wayne Rooney? When Wayne Rooney was turned into something less of a striker at Manchester United, it was the other way round, wasn't it?
It was.
And then when he went back to England, they kind of still made him play as a striker.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Even though they didn't really understand why they were doing it.
Yeah, I can't understand how that can happen without, a clash of opinions from the two managers, because surely a player gets better and better the longer he plays in one set position and improves and practices and hones his skill in that position.
Although you might argue that the more different positions he plays in, perhaps the more versatile he becomes and the more useful he becomes to anybody that he's playing for.
The only great player who's ever played in multiple positions and been hailed as world class in each of them was John Charles.
What about Gareth Bale? I mean, he was hired originally as a left back, was he not?
Yes, but he's merged into another player. He's merged into a flying winger.
But don't you think the fact that he used to play left back is actually helpful to him playing as a winger because he knows what it's like to be a defender?
Yes, I do. But what I'm saying is, John Stones will not now turn into a defensive midfield player just because Southgate's played him there.
Really?
He will go back to being a centre-half in Manchester
because,
City.
To be honest, he's not very good at being a defender. Let's face it. I mean, this is a guy who makes blunder after blunder after blunder.
Harsh,
even though Pep Guardiola likes the idea that you can play the ball out of danger, he more often than not plays the ball into danger.
He has done that on occasions, I have to say. John Charles, incidentally, was world-class playing centre-forward and world-class playing centre-half. Did you know that?
I did know that.
Yeah, you see.
That was a very long time ago.
Yeah, but he's the only... Yeah, well, that just proves how difficult it is for a player to grasp and excel in two different positions on the football field.
Why don't we ask the Manchester City fans, because they're the ones that are important to us, right? Because they will have an opinion on whether they want John Stones even playing defensively for them, because they might say, actually, maybe this is a great idea to move him up into midfield and get him out of the way of the danger zone, because at least if he gives the ball away in midfield, it won't result in a goal.
Do you know what? Do you think Manchester City fans might now be regretting the acquisition of John Stones?
No.
You know, the £50 million
you're just saying that
centre-half.
because you're now the anti-John Stones brigade.
No, I'm not.
Ever since he left Everton.
Not at all.
And you think that Everton got a good deal by flogging him?
Well, we got 50 million quid. I'm going to give out the number to Manchester City fans.
Why don't you do that?
Okay?
Yeah.
So
they like it when you give out the number because you do it so slowly.
No, I do it precisely. I do not mangle mouth it. You know, it has to be done slowly.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So it's 08717 22 33 4.
Okay.
Give us a call, please.
Yes.
Want to hear?
Why are you limiting it just to Manchester City fans?
Well, I'm not. I'm limiting it to any fans who think that they're.
What about England fans?
England fans certainly. England fans certainly. But the issue here is it's a double-edged sword, this question.
Most of them are.
Should John Stones be played out of position? Should any player be played out of position when he joins the England squad? Do the Manchester City fans think that John Stones has actually been worth what you paid for him and has a future at Manchester City under Pep Guardiola?
Incidentally, there's an awful lot of talk about leadership and whether there is any leadership in the England team. Yeah. I mean, why is John Stones not being a candidate for leadership? Because, I mean, he plays in the ideal position.
He does.
You know, he's tall, he's quite hefty, he's quite strong, he's a good-looking guy. He could be a perfect captain, couldn't he, if he was sort of trained properly? But wasn't old Pep Southgate taking them all down to this Marines training course in order to pick leaders?
Yeah, it's become the key word, hasn't it, in football philosophy
leadership.
Now. Yeah. You've got to have 6 or 7 leaders in the squad.
Yeah.
And about 2 weeks ago, I think Mr. Southgate was saying I might just rotate the captaincy depending on who we're playing. Yeah. And did so. He had 5 different captains in 5 games, and then decided no, we're sticking with Harry Kane.
Which, and everybody's saying Harry Kane's not really a leader.
Yeah, well, he wanted it, so from that point of view, he seized the leadership. I mean, he said it's every player's dream to become England captain.
Yeah.
He said, I've done it once, I'd love to do it again, and so he will.
Okay.
And he did a very good job, I thought, and also scoring a goal in added-on time to rescue a point for your team in a qualifying competition is a great example of leadership.
Well, that certainly was a great example of leadership. Now, what about the other thing I want to mention to you very quickly, which is the acquisition by Everton of a new goalkeeper, by the looks of it?
Well, it looks like it might be coming off.
Jordan Pickford, is his name.
Oh, yeah, Jordan Pickford, yeah. I mean, 30 million...
Is that somebody else are you thinking?
Sorry? No. What I was going to say is, I think that £30 million for a goalkeeper is a hefty fee.
It used to be a lot of money for a goalkeeper, but not anymore.
You think so?
Well, now that everybody's got all this money to throw around and money to burn, you know, no wonder people are thinking about paying some ludicrous amount of money for bringing anybody in from the continent. Yeah. You know, £100 million all over for, you know, Virgil van Dijk was up at 70 million, wasn't he? Well, he hasn't gone anywhere yet.
He hasn't gone anywhere yet. The point is, without indulging myself in Everton, it could be part of a jigsaw which is emerging at Everton, because it seems, according to some pundits, Ross Barkley's Everton career may be over, as the club have very publicly made it clear they're seeking 2 replacements, or not 2 replacements, 2 additions to their midfield, Davy Klaassen and Gylfi Sigurdsson. And
Gylfi Sigurdsson is a great player.
Yeah, he's a great player. I totally agree. And David Klaassen, I think, is the captain of Ajax. And obviously, with the Dutch connection, you know, Mr. Koeman will have been able to thoroughly check up on what the boy's all about.
Yes.
So that might be another pointer to, you know, towards the way things are going.
Still no news on Lukaku, by the way. My theory that he's staying. Could well be still the one, right? We want to hear from
could be.
Want to hear from you, Manchester City fans and England fans as well. 08717 22 3344. Is John Stones the future? Is he the answer? Should he be being played as a midfielder because he's no good as a defender?
Or is he the past?
From you.
OK, now this is the Two Mics. We're on talkSPORT and we are delighted to say we are with Wicks. Now, right now, there's a 3 for 2 across gardens and landscaping, including all decking and wood care.
Got a tweet here from Jack who says, "Can Porky give out the number again, please? I didn't quite catch it the last time. You want to give it out again?"
Well, listen, I give it out slowly and surely and precisely so that everybody gets it. I'm not going to give it out again because people know the number. It's 08717 223344.
I thought you said you weren't going to give it out
Well,
again.
I thought I just would.
How about this one from Craig, who says, "Porky just said Stones won't be a defensive midfielder and will return to Manchester City as a centre-half. Surely that's the same thing."
No, it's not.
No?
Of course it's not. Of course it's not the same thing. For goodness sake, man.
Yeah.
A defensive midfielder takes the weight off both the defenders and the attackers, doesn't he, by acting as a bridge between the two.
OK, Philip Lahm has played right back, left back, on the wing and central midfield for Bayern Munich and was unreal in every position he was asked to play in, says Joe.
That's of no interest to me whatsoever. I'm sorry. Picking
Well, you
one
said that no player's ever done it.
Well, picking one player out of the thousands of players that have been,
Philip Lahm's a pretty decent player.
On football pitches over the last 2 centuries. So, I found an example here. I mean, there's always one exception to the rule. Philip Lahm's OK, but he's not even English. So what's the relevance of it?
Kevin says, what about Dion Dublin? He was a striker and a centre-half.
Well, Dion Dublin's a lovely chap and a great guy and a useful footballer, but hardly world class.
And Paul says this, I'm not quite sure what he's referring to. Why does Porky always get humiliated and made to look like a bumbling idiot?
Sorry, when? Like when?
Well, I presume he means right now.
What are you on about?
I've no idea. Let's talk to some fans.
Must have been drinking.
AJ's from QPR. AJ, very good morning to you. Welcome.
All right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very good, mate.
Very well, mate. What do you think about this England situation?
Well, I think they should play with 3 at the back, but I think they should play with 2 centre-halves and Wayne Rooney as a sweeper.
OK. And would any of those back 5 be John Stones?
Yes.
What would he be?
Definitely. He would be one of the centre-halves and maybe John Stones, and I wouldn't have Cahill in there because I don't think he's really up to it in Chesterfield now. Maybe Stones and Jones, 2 centre-halves, and Rooney as a sweeper because I think Rooney's got a good reading of the game.
He has.
And he's a good passer of the ball, so he can play out.
Look, mate, before this goes any further, I'm sorry, it's nonsensical to talk about Wayne Rooney as a sweeper.
Well, he's currently in Mykonos. You don't think he's sweeping up as the sand off his shoes?
Honestly, AJ, I mean, it's nice to get new ideas on the show and bounce around, but...
Well, don't be horrible to AJ. He's phoned in.
I know, I'm not being horrible.
Well, be nice to him.
How can you possibly see him as a sweeper? I mean, he's no longer regarded as a top-class forward because he doesn't have the pace, right?
Yeah, but hang on.
A sweeper needs to be able to get across the ground very quickly.
A sweeper doesn't need to be that quick.
He does. Nah. He does. Well, a sweeper like Kevin Ratcliffe needs to be immensely quick.
Why don't you let AJ speak? What do you think, AJ?
Well, I'll tell you what. One of the best sweepers ever was Franz Beckenbauer.
Franz Beckenbauer,
yes.
He wasn't quick.
Well, Franz Beckenbauer wasn't a sweeper, man. Franz Beckenbauer was a
sweeper. He invented it.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
He invented being a
sweeper. And was Bobby
sweeper.
Moore a sweeper, was he?
Bobby Moore was not a sweeper before Franz Beckenbauer was.
Exactly.
No, Bobby Moore became a sweeper after Franz Beckenbauer.
Yeah.
Best managers we ever had who should have got the England job and never got it was Brian Clough.
Yeah.
And he signed a player from Birmingham called Kenny Burns.
Yes, he did.
He was a centre forward.
Yeah.
And he played with a centre half.
Yes.
And Kenny Burns won Football of the Year, and Forest won the title and the Champions League.
Listen, AJ, thank you very much for your call. Let's go to Phil, who's a Man City fan. He might have something to say about John Stones. Hi, Phil.
Hi.
Yeah, good morning. What would you like to say, Phil?
Yeah. Well, I was saying to my son, we're both season tickets at City, and when we bought Stones and we knew Pep was going to be the manager, I said to my son, Sam, I can well see Pep Guardiola turning Stones into a Busquets-type role. Because he's that sort of physique, he gives us the height in midfield, he can play the ball, he's a good ball player. But so I can see him being multi-faceted for us, whether it be full-back, whether it be centre-back, whether it be defensive midfield player. But the real point I wanted to ask was Mike Graham.
Yeah.
Mike, you've just said in your introduction to this piece, you said that Stones commits blunder after blunder after blunder.
He does.
Now, I want you to name them if they're so prevalent, because having watched him all season, my thinking of it is he's made a few errors that have been high-profile ones and have been highly publicised.
Well, I'm sure that's what you could... blunder after blunder is...
does it?
Well, hang on, Phil. Blunder after blunder after blunder is a minimum of 3 blunders. You've admitted that he's made several, right? I presume you mean he's made about 5 or 6.
I didn't say several.
Well, how many would you say he's made?
High-profile. I would say he's made about over a 50-game season. I would say he's made about 3 or 4.
So did they cost you goals? Did they cost you goals?
Blunder after blunder after blunder is 3 blunders.
I don't think any. I think none of them, bar one, have cost us a goal.
So one did.
Cost us a goal against Southampton.
Right.
That was Kompany's blunder. That was Vincent Kompany's fault. And Vincent Kompany
had a whole team full of blunderers.
Because he was just coming back.
Well, Phil, listen, I don't want you to take this. Don't want you to take this seriously, because a lot of Manchester City fans seem to take everything I say very, very seriously, right? Blunder after blunder after blunder means...
Well, you can't see any wrong with Chelsea, Mike. That's your problem.
Chelsea?
You can't see any wrong with
What's it got to do with Chelsea? John Stones don't play for Chelsea.
You could have done.
That's why you love having a pop at City.
I don't love having a pop at City. I'll just tell you what the facts are, Phil. You've admitted to me, Phil, on this radio station just now that he's made 3 or 4 blunders, right? I said
3 or 4 over a season.
Yeah, I said blunder after blunder after blunder. That's 3 blunders.
Phil, you know that Mike Graham doesn't like... He doesn't like northern people, you know that.
It's happening every game.
Phil,
semantics.
You know, people are still... Do you know, Phil, do you know there are Manchester City fans that are still going on about what I said about Yaya Toure 7 years ago? Do you know that? Where's he gone?
Yeah, Phil.
You're wrong. He's a fantastic player.
Yeah, I didn't say he wasn't I never said he wasn't a great player. I just said I wouldn't recognise him if I was stood next to him at a bus stop.
Well, you know, I don't know why Mike Graham doesn't like northern people, Phil. I just don't know. I've never worked it out.
I like northern. No, I don't think he would, Phil. But that's hardly the point, is it? But thank you very much for your call. It's very sensitive, these Man City fans.
Well,
I don't know what's wrong with them.
You know, your tirade against northern teams is so obvious now, so transparent. I don't blame them getting upset. I really don't.
Okay. Yeah. Porky, of course, who supports Everton but never goes to see them. This is talkSPORT. This is talkSPORT. We are the 2 mics. Loads coming up, of course, between now and 1 o'clock when it's time for Hawksby and Jacobs. A lot of people on Twitter accusing me of winding up Manchester City fans. Nothing could be further from the truth. And Paul says, Mike, I hold nothing against you as a City fan. I work on opinions. And he says that everybody's got one. He says it in rather a rude way, but I want to read that bit out. Jane says, blunder after blunder after blunder. Surely MG must be talking about the Porkmeister.
You see, you only ever read out negative ones like that. Look at this from Tony, Cambridge Tony. He says, as you quite rightly said, Porky, MG, malevolence towards anything northern. It's palpable again, isn't it?
No, I'm from North London. Palpable. I'm from North London.
And it says here, Andy says, what have you got against northerners then, MG?
Yeah.
Don't tar us all with the old Mike Parry brush. We're not all planks, you know.
Yeah, you see.
Very harsh one,
that's against you, that one. And Becky from New Zealand says, Stones is in the same league as David Luiz. Ball-playing defenders rather than no-nonsense centre-halves. Put it in row Z. So, anyway, let's take some calls because a lot more people want to get on talking about John Stones. Should he be being re-educated by Pep Southgate into playing in the midfield rather than as a defender? We've had a Man City fan earlier, Phil, who said I was talking rubbish, that he hasn't made blunder after blunder after blunder, but over the season of 50-plus games, he's done all right. But surely he's not the sort of defender you'd want in your team, is he? Let's talk to Dave, who's a West Ham fan. Dave, very good morning to you.
Morning, chaps. You all right there?
Yeah, very well, mate.
Very well,
what would you like to say?
Yeah, I've got to say, I totally think that he should be a central midfielder or holding midfielder. And you said there aren't many examples of people that have done it, but we've got someone in the England team at the moment that started off as a centre-half, Eric Dyer.
Yes, he did, He was at Everton, actually.
Yeah, funnily enough, ever since Porky said he couldn't think of anybody apart from John Charles, there's been a lot of people been nominated, having played in all sorts of different positions.
Yeah, but the thing is, Dave, he found his best position early in his career. When he played at Everton in the defence, he wasn't that impressive. He moved on. Another manager had an idea for him, has developed him into a great international player. But it doesn't mean to say that he can swap back to what he used to do. He is now what he is.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but you know, there's another example. I'm a West Ham fan. We've got Reece Oxford on our books. You know, and he's a centre half. But he made his debut as a holding midfielder against Arsenal and had Oza in his pocket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, in this day and age, there must be an awful lot of footballers that start out in one position and end up playing in another. But I suppose what Mike means is that it's unusual to play in different positions at the top level, isn't it? I mean, it's not very often you'll take a guy like John Stones and then say, right, we're just going to make you into a midfielder.
Yeah.
I do see him in the future as a midfielder, personally.
Would you have him at West Ham, Dave, as a defender?
Probably, yeah, to be honest.
Yeah, but the other thing is, Dave, the other point is this. If a West Ham player goes and joins the England squad, right, and the West Ham player plays in a very specific role at your stadium, the London Stadium, but then his head gets all scrambled up because on international duty he's asked to play in a different position, you ain't going to be very happy when he comes back, are you? And then starts questioning where he should play in the team against his own club manager.
Well, we're probably a bad example because we're used to that every week anyway. Like Mikel Antonio goes from right back to right wing to centre forward. Yeah,
I know that. But what I'm saying is you don't want international duty to suddenly confuse the players as to what their duties are to their club.
Well, I get your argument there,
yes.
But like I say, I see Stones as a midfielder going forward.
Really? Well, I find that extraordinary.
One of the callers earlier, one of the City supporters said himself that they thought when Pep came in, they could see him moulding him into a Busquets player. Yeah, well, that only means they don't think he's as good a centre-half as they thought he'd be.
Thanks very much indeed. I think Pep Guardiola quite looks upon midfielders and defensive players as one and the same.
Yeah.
I don't think he actually sees people as being in a particularly sort of, solid, immovable position. I think he wants all of his midfielders and all of his defenders to be able to interchange with each other and to be able to walk around with the ball and feel comfortable, being very artistic with it.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the reasons that City let in so many goals last year.
Yeah, no,
because he doesn't really know how to defend.
I totally agree. How do you think he'll play under the? How do you think he'd play under the floodlights?
Who?
Because he's going to be playing more. John Stones. He's going to play. Well, he'd be playing more games under the floodlights next season.
Well,
do you know why?
Floodlights.
Well, because on a Saturday night now we're going to have Saturday night football. Did you know that?
Yes, I know that.
It's
going to be a suggestion. I don't know if it's actually going to happen.
It's an innovation. Here, let me tell you.
Well, have they actually decided to do it?
Well, here, Premier League clubs are considering playing matches on Saturday nights.
Yeah. Considering. Well, it doesn't mean it's happening, does it?
Well, usually when you read a Premier League clubs are considering, it means will this bring in more revenues, will this bring in more viewers, and it usually goes ahead.
Is it the Premier League itself that's considering it, in which case that'll probably happen?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Well, the Premier League clubs are run by the Premier League board, which is comprised of the Premier League chairman.
Yeah.
So it's all one and the same.
Else on it.
No, exactly. Premier League clubs are considering playing matches Saturday night. Yeah. Up to 30 more fixtures will be shown live in the next broadcasting deal, which won't kick in next season, of course. It'll be season after.
Yeah.
At least 190 games a season and possibly more than 200.
Yeah.
And one proposal is to target a peak time television audience with kick-offs on Saturdays at 7:45. Now, does that mean that your day could go like this? You get up and you go out and you feed your ducks and all that kind of stuff. What people do.
By the way, did you see Rick Wakeman's tweet earlier on today?
What was that?
Rick Wakeman tweeted that he went to a local duck pond recently.
Oh, yes.
To feed the ducks. And he also left a map for them to return. This was apropos of your episodes with the ducks.
Yes.
He left a map for them, which he drew into gravel, showing how they could get back to his house. And then his next tweet was, they never came. Do you think poor old Rick's lost the plot slightly?
Do you think that he might have been on the, what we call the firewater or its equivalent of it or something like that?
I don't know.
That's
but
very
he seemingly went to the local pond to try and lure the ducks back to his house.
Where was this? Somewhere in this country?
Yeah, somewhere in Sussex or somewhere.
Okay, if I can, I run a duck conservancy. If I can help Rick Wakeman
run a duck conservancy
to work out.
Sure, you don't want to reword that.
To work out the thinking of a duck's mind, I certainly will. Now then,
sure you don't want to reword that.
Can we just get back to what we're talking about, please? We're talking about football.
Okay.
So there we go. And then at about 11 o'clock, I might say to myself, "Oh wow, there's a game kicking off at 12:30. I'll just go and have a heart warmer pint. You know what I mean? In my local.
Well, you normally start before that, don't you?
That's not the point, is it? This is a family show.
You normally have breakfast at Wetherspoons on Saturday.
Excuse me. And then you watch the first game. That's usually over about 2:30. Then the 3 o'clock games kick in. So you stick around just to hang on. You've got
such a great life, haven't you? You've got nothing else to do.
No, hang on. And you're probably tuning by this time into talkSPORT Saturday afternoon coverage. You're picking up on all the
around
goals.
The grounds.
Around the grounds.
All the goals they go in.
At 5:30, you might decide to take in another game. You might either take that in on the radio if it's talkSPORT.
So by this time, you've been in a pub for about 6 hours.
Yeah, and then the 5:30 game, that won't finish till sort of...
Would you just stay in the same spot?
7:30.
Would you not go to a new pub?
Well, this wouldn't be me. And then there's an evening game, a kick-off 7:45. I mean, crikey, it'd be quite a long footballing day, couldn't it?
Well, not least if you spent it at the pub. 12 hours.
Yeah, well,
that's extraordinary.
Yes, extraordinary.
Well, I mean, if anybody would I can't imagine that people would want to do that, really, because, I mean, I think it would be great fun if there's a live football match on a Saturday night. You might wish to go and see it in person as well, because, say, for example, seats became available. I know that in some football clubs there are seats available, sometimes on a nightly basis.
Yes.
You could go out and decide to take your kids to a game or something on Saturday night.
Yeah, you could,
But it will change the kind of the mindset of football fans, won't it? Because don't forget, most people also quite like to watch Match of the Day on a Saturday night. If you went to a 7:45 kickoff, there's a pretty good chance you would miss that, isn't it?
Well, there is a pretty good chance. It says here, research shows that viewers' habits are changing, but the return of Newcastle United, for instance, to the top flight may result in figures recovering next season. So one big club with a huge crowd, makes a slight difference to the figures.
I mean, would it make any difference for you, perhaps having the availability to go up to watch Everton on a Saturday night?
Well, I think
because you could do that.
I think yes, I could, and it's a good question because normally speaking, if I felt I had commitments on a Sunday morning, I can go up to Everton on the train for a 3 o'clock game or as late as 5:30 because the 5:30 game finishes 7:30 at the latest. The last train back is 10 to 8, so I can always make that,
Really? The last train back on a Saturday?
Saturday is 10 to 8,
That's ridiculous,
Yeah,
isn't it?
well, that's it.
Bonkers.
Yeah. So anyway, if I went for the 7:45 game, then it wouldn't finish till after 10.
Right.
And of course,
you'd stay up there?
I would stay up there, that's right, and then and come back
But that's
Sunday.
what I'm saying. So what I'm asking you is, does that make it any easier for you to go to a place like Goodison, particularly if you've got a job to do on a Saturday?
Well, it does. You've answered your own question. It does depend on what surrounds the game and the kick-off time of the game. You know what I mean? Whether I'm working in the afternoon, whether I'm working tonight, whether I'm working Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So all that has to be taken into account.
And what does it mean for season ticket holders, for example? Will they have to find themselves going to that game, or if it's at home, the home game at 10, it doesn't finish till 10 on a Saturday night?
Yeah.
Or would they not want to have that as part of their deal?
Well, I think as this won't be implemented until at least the season after the next one, then they will have to be told about the considerations of variable kick-off times, won't they? That's the way I would think it would happen. But generally speaking, you see, what often happens is when you get your season ticket, you only know the kick-off times of the games in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Because then they want to see which clubs are moving and shaking and get tastier fixtures for the second half of the season. So it could well mean that a game that you've been, put in your diary for months, which is going to happen in January or February,
gets moved.
Yeah, exactly. At 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon is now in fact at 12:30 on a Saturday, or maybe in 5:30.
But that happens, though, and people just have to get used to it. We'll take some calls on this as well.
Indeed.
Do you care if the games are on a Saturday night? Will it ruin your weekend, or will it improve it? 08717 223344. Final tweet here on this Smash the City thing from Steve. He says, I didn't know Yaya Toure was a Northerner. Well, he's not.
No, he plays for a Northern team.
Hey! The sun goes down like a bad, bad dream. You end up tight. Gotta let off steam. They say they can break you.
This is talkSPORT, and we are the two mics, of course, and we are with Wicks. Right now, there's 3 for 2 across gardens and landscaping, including all decking and a woodcut. Gabriel says this on the Twitter. He says, I think Southgate would be better off with Oliver Stone or Josh Stone at the back, or possibly Michael Stone.
Yeah, Michael Stone.
I mean, any number of different Stones. People are being a bit harsh about that. Now, one of the things that has happened over the course of the last few months and years, I suppose you might say, is that the man hug has become something to do. Right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Well, you may not be, but I've got a quiz for you here if you're willing to take it. Because the question is, what sort of a man are you?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because I would imagine that I know the answer to that.
Yes. Most people who know me know the answer to that. Yes.
But I'm going to give you a few short questions, multiple choice type answers, to find out whether or not you are in fact a modern man. And you have to listen to the answers and go for one of the 4 answers, right? Or one of the 3, in fact, A, B, or C.
Right.
First question: when was the last time you cried? A, gosh, I'm not sure. I'm not a big crier. B, on Remembrance Sunday. The last post sets me off every time. C, this morning doing the school run when I saw a broken bird's nest.
A.
A.
because I don't think I ever have.
You don't think you've ever
No,
cried?
as an adult,
Yeah.
no.
Question number 2. When you meet your brother-in-law at the pub, how do you greet him? With a sharp nod of the head, with an awkward arm clasp, or with a lingering, firm, two-armed bear hug, finished off with an admiring, have you been working out?
Well, the nearest thing to that is B, a firm handshake.
A firm handshake, okay.
Yeah.
Question 3. What do you apply to your armpits in the morning? This is going to be a bit horrible. It's Sure deodorant spray, B, a L'Occitane, or C, a Philips electric razor.
What's the closest to a roll-on?
That would be Sure deodorant spray.
Right,
I would say.
okay.
I don't imagine you've got any L'Occitane, have you, in the cupboard?
What is L'Occitane?
It's a sort of a cosmetic fragrance.
No, not at all.
Of the soap
I
variety.
use a Sure roll-on, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Thanks for telling me.
Yeah.
Your children's hamster dies. This is kind of non-applicable to you.
Yes.
Do you bung it in the bin and tell the kids it's on holiday?
Yeah.
B, bury it in a shoebox at the end of the garden?
Yeah.
And C, take the day off work and create a 6-minute video of his finest moments?
Well, I don't have children, obviously, but I do have nieces and nephews, and we have had those sort of domestic tragedies.
Yeah.
So I would be a B in that, which is, sort of...
Bury it in a shoebox at the end of the garden?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
You haven't got a garden?
Well, no, but my nieces and nephews do have big gardens, so I would have organised that.
Okay. Do you find yourself in church on a Sunday during the sign of peace? Do you A, avoid all eye contact with these strangers? B, offer a quick handshake to the person on your left? C, lean across the pew and embrace as many people as possible?
I always opt out of that one. I leave the church before it happens.
What?
I hate the...
so you go to church?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Before the sign of peace comes,
yes.
you walk out?
I do, yeah, I leave, yeah.
So how do you manage that?
Well, because
do you always sit at the end of the pew?
Yes, I do, actually. I always sit on the end of a pew. It's like when I go to a football match, I always like to sit on the end of the row.
Yeah.
So that's NA.
Well, I'm going to put A down for that.
Why?
Because it says avoid all eye contact with any strangers, means you don't do it.
Okay, yeah.
You're doing an extreme version of that.
Okay.
Here's another one that's not applicable to you. Your first child is born, what do?
Yeah.
Ring up the Times and place a birth announcement. B, post a picture on Facebook of you holding the baby.
Yeah.
Or C, whip off your shirt and cradle the baby against your chest.
It would be the first. I would like to announce it in the Times or some other newspaper.
Yeah. Well, it's another fantasy quiz, this really, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because none of these questions apply to you.
Well, but if I did have a child, that's what I'd want to do, yeah.
Yeah, but you don't. Here's the next one. It also doesn't apply to you. One of your oldest friends lands an exciting new job.
Yeah.
What do? Press the congratulate button on LinkedIn, text him a thumbs up emoji, or write him an email to explain how proud you are of all he has achieved in life. And then cry a bit.
No, I wouldn't cry a bit. It would be the B, I think. I'd like him to know that I feel good for him.
Thumbs up emoji.
Yes.
All right. During your office annual review, your boss refuses to give you a pay rise. Do you A, say nothing but quietly seethe for the next 12 months?
Yeah.
B, say nothing but later get teary on the phone to your wife?
Yeah.
C, cry in front of your boss?
It would be A.
A.
I would never
would
release
seethe
my
for the
emotions
next
like that.
12 months.
What?
You generally spend your life in a state of seething, don't you? You're seething about something.
Well, generally speaking, I've never had to ask for a pay rise. Generally, the pay rise
because
has been
you're a
offered
millionaire.
to me. No, it's not a millionaire. They're ridiculous. No, they're ridiculous.
You sure you don't want me to play that recording I've got on my phone?
What of?
When I recorded you about the number of houses you own.
Oh, rubbish.
The other day.
Rubbish.
Your
Can I get
voice.
on with this, please?
Next one. What was the happiest day of your life? A, being made a school prefect. B, my wedding day.
Yeah.
Or C, today. It's always today because I'm so blessed to be healthy and happy.
I think that's definitely got to be C today.
You're happy today, are you?
Yeah, I'm very happy. Yeah, happy to be
Makes
here.
a change.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Mostly as, oh dear. Oh, hang on, sorry, that's mostly A's. That's not a question. I'll have to add these up.
Okay.
And find out and give you an answer for what you've been saying.
Well, is this all about whether you're a real man or not? Or these silly quizzes?
Well, it's not whether you're a real man. It's
Yeah.
about what type of man you are.
What does it say about the bear hug? Does it say the bear hug is acceptable, not acceptable, or what?
Well, it's not a question of whether it's acceptable. You see, this is how old-fashioned you are.
Yeah.
It's not about whether it's right or wrong. It's just about what kind of guy you are. You can be a man that gives a lot of bear hugs and nobody's going to castigate you for it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be ashamed of having to behave in a particular way.
Yes.
Even if you want to be Sid the sexist, that's all right as well.
Yes,
because
is
we
it?
now live in a much kinder, gentler kind of world.
Right.
I'm told you had mostly A's.
Right.
And it says here, oh dear, it may be time to loosen up a little. There's nothing wrong with crying in a Pixar movie, and sometimes giving another man a good hug is, well, a bit less awkward than nodding at them.
Yeah.
You should try it sometime.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
basically what you should do is embrace your fellow co-workers, right? Give them all a hug.
Yeah.
Make them all feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
And stop being so prickly.
But what's the expression about let your something side take over? What is it called? Is it your...
Your inner what?
Yeah, your inner something take over.
Yeah, you can be your inner child.
Oh, the inner child, yeah.
You can be
or
your inner sort of
or-
Muppet.
Yeah, well, no, not the Muppet in my case. But
Your inner hamster.
whilst we were going through that, did you, in your own head, record your own responses to that quiz?
I would imagine mine would be mostly B's, I would think.
Right.
Rather
I had some
than
Bs.
mostly A's. And so mostly B's would say this. You've swapped loaded for men's health. You take time in the bathroom and John Lewis's menswear department.
Yeah.
But sometimes you look at the younger generation of men and wonder if they have it easier.
Yeah.
Well, that's all very well until the last bit.
Exactly.
I think younger men actually now have it much more difficult than we did.
Well, in what respect?
Well, because it's much more difficult to be a man nowadays because young men don't know how to do it. They're not sure what they're supposed to do.
Well, I think that
I overheard two guys the other day having a conversation about boxercise. Right? Two guys in this office.
Well, the size of the boxer shorts, then.
No! Boxercise, as in, what you do when you go into a boxercise class.
What's boxer?
Exercise boxing.
Oh, I
Not the
see.
size
Oh,
of
well, I
your
didn't.
boxers.
Well, I didn't know that, did I?
Well, I don't. Have you never heard of boxercise?
No, I haven't.
Well, there you are. So you're even further behind the 8 ball than I am.
Well, what is it?
Well, it's when you go and do an exercise class, but
Right.
it's basically about boxing.
Oh,
so instead of calling it exercise, they call it boxercise.
Talking about exercise, by the way. Have you seen that video that came out this morning of the
What?
bloke who's got the world record for smashing concrete blocks with his
No,
head?
I haven't.
It's utterly fantastic.
No, I haven't.
Because what he does is, he comes forward and then he dives onto a pile of 6 concrete blocks.
Right.
And they all smash.
Right.
But then he flips his legs over. He's constantly doing like handstands without his hands.
Like handsprings.
His hands don't touch the ground.
Yeah.
He's just leaping over these concrete blocks, but
Right.
nutting them as he leaps over them.
Okay.
And then he leaps over and lands on his head on the next one,
Right.
and leaps over.
Right.
And he got the world record for smashing concrete blocks with his head.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be able to find it, because I saw it this morning.
Well, does it end in some fantastically unusual way then?
Well, he runs away and celebrates like he's just won the FA Cup. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because he's just got a brand new
okay.
world record.
All right.
But it's an incredible.
I'll check it out.
It's an incredible feat, and I mean, I suppose if you're looking for real men and all that kind of stuff, I suppose that's pretty good.
Well, I
going.
don't think we are.
Yeah.
Here's one from John Laguna in Muswell Hill. Parry, you're a caveman throwback with no empathy or self-awareness. Anyone
Yeah.
who hasn't cried in adulthood needs therapy urgently.
Well, no, I don't agree. I mean, it depends on what your emotional makeup is, I suppose. I don't say to myself, oh, I'm a real man, I must not cry. It's just that, when things hit me emotionally...
It's just that you're an emotional husk.
I deal with them in a different way.
Yeah.
Just deal with them in a
Adam
different
says, oh my God, I've just answered the same as Porky. Please
Yeah.
put me out of my misery. For the love of God, I'm doomed.
way. Yeah.
Pete says, I bet Porky puts his journals all over the pew to stop people sitting anywhere near him in church. Hashtag
Yeah.
man of the people.
No, I don't. I just like to have a bit of space to be able to get out on time because, I have other things to do usually when I'm attending church. You have to go off and do something. Now, what I find odd here is that people are saying, oh, Porky, you think they were talking about boxer shorts? I should imagine 98% of our audience thought that we were talking about boxer shorts
No, I don't think they did, actually.
when old MG here talks about boxercise.
You're the only person in the world that's never heard of boxercise.
Rubbish.
You plake.
Rubbish.
This is talkSPORT.
We the lads, Newcastle, and the eastern sun is rising in the sky. It's China on the time. What do you think
Even
of
by
that?
your standards, that is
Eh?
probably the worst thing I've ever heard.
No, it's not.
Some of
Don't
your
get it.
singing has not been bad over the years,
Hang
but
on.
that you haven't got even anything like the real. We should play the real tune, please, if you've got it,
No.
because the real tune is nothing like what you've just sung.
It is. It
That's
is.
horrendous.
It is. It wasn't. Don't you get it? It's a take on.
Well, I quite like the take on China on the time
China
and
on
all
the
that,
time. It's,
instead
you
of
know,
China in my hand. I quite like all that.
That was to Pow,
Yeah.
and it was Carol Decker, I think.
It was not to pow what I just heard.
No, well,
It was
no, but-
to load of old cobblers.
That's very harsh. But I mean, don't you get the analogy? You know,
Here's the real song, right?
right?
Told in a foreign land,
I mean, you don't ape anything
take
of
life
this.
on earth to the second birth, and
Try and sing it live, right? On
no,
top
no,
of this, and
no,
it'll sound better.
No. Now, can we have my version again, please? Oh well, let's have the chorus. Sorry, we've got the chorus.
Why don't you just listen to me? Nothing like it.
And the
Nothing like it.
sun is rising in the sky.
The syllables are all wrong.
It's China on the time. That was brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant.
Absolute rubbish.
I tell you
anyway,
what,
the story is, right? The
I'd
story
like our
is...
listeners to give us the verdict on that, please, because I'm constantly being put down here for my creative, I wouldn't say genius, but my creative
I wouldn't
decisions.
say genius either.
Creative decisions on these things.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is the way to introduce the story about the fact that Newcastle, may
Your
be
beloved
subject,
Newcastle.
may be subject soon to a bid, a takeover bid from a group of businessmen from China.
Well, I mean, I will be more than happy to involve the audience in judging whether or not your song is any good, but unfortunately at the moment they're all a bit too busy tweeting about how hilarious it was that you thought boxer size was something to do with the size of your boxer shorts.
I wouldn't be alone in that.
Here's one from David who says, oh my God, I've just spat my brew on my laptop in the office.
Yes, really?
Becky says, I overheard two guys talking about boxer size. What's that? The size of their boxers? Sean says, can you thank Mike Parry as I've just spat my brew out laughing at the boxer size comment all over my truck, which I've just cleaned.
I am sorry.
And there's hundreds of them.
Well, I'm sorry, but I mean, the point is, very few people have heard of boxercise, right?
That's not true.
I'm telling you, yeah.
I don't think there are. I'm telling you, I don't think there's anyone out there that has never heard of it.
Yeah, well,
anyway, tell us about the China story, because there's a Chinese consortium supposedly interested in buying Newcastle. Mr. Mike Ashley, the owner, has previously said that he would never sell the club until they'd won something.
Which he would include as a top
Champions
four
League spot.
Champions League spot.
Hasn't. Well, I presume unless he meant the top four spot in the Championship.
No,
he hasn't done any of those things, right? So why would he sell?
Well, the report here that I'm getting here says Mike Ashley has held talks with the Chinese consortium over a possible takeover at Toon. Newcastle have had interest from a number of bidders in the last 12 months, but Mr. Ashley is seriously considering one of the latest ones, which apparently does involve, a consortium of people from the very, very wealthy Far East.
Yeah, well, indeed. But unfortunately, the very, very wealthy Far East have not always come up trumps, have they? Because we had a Chinese group trying to buy Southampton. That seems to have all gone very quiet. It was supposedly it was approved by the Premier League, but then there was some kind of question mark placed over one or two of the companies involved in the buy-up.
That's right,
So that all seems to have gone very quiet. Birmingham hasn't gone particularly well, you'd have to say, would you?
No.
I mean, Aston Villa have now got Chinese owners, I believe. West Brom have now got Chinese owners.
Yes.
They haven't exactly come in and sort of set the place alight, have they?
Well, it may be a sort of a culture shock business-wise to own something which doesn't guarantee a profit and all that kind of stuff, know. But anyway, it goes on to say the Sports Direct tycoon, that's Mike Ashley, obviously, could fetch up to £200 million for the club he bought in 2007. But in another report, I saw a figure of £400 million being the selling figure for the club. Mr. Ashley previously tried to sell Newcastle a year into his ownership, but later changed his mind. He has also rejected offers from China 12 months ago after the club was relegated. Well, that would be because of the buying price, wouldn't it?
Yes, exactly.
But he will now attract a much larger price as the Toon are back in the Premier League and will be turning over a profit this season. So,
I'm sure it's a very attractive proposition. But whether or not it's £400 million worth of attractive proposition, I wonder.
Do you think the Newcastle fans will warm to the mysteries of the Eastern culture that may envelop them?
Well, what I found interesting is that I was listening to some Newcastle fans talking to Alan Brazil and Mickey Quinn on the Sports Breakfast, and what they were seemingly saying was that they preferred the devil that they knew.
Yeah.
Because Mike Ashley, despite the fact that he's taken a terrible shellacking from an awful lot of Newcastle fans
over the years,
is somebody who now has become sort of a reasonably okay figure to them. They don't seem to hate him anywhere near as much as they used to.
Well, I don't think they ever hated him. I think they were taken by surprise at the the energy and the industry which he ran the club, including renaming the stadium.
No, they used to talk about the Cockney Mafia. They hated Alan Pardew. They hated the fact that he was his mate, and that was the reason he was working there.
Yes.
And there seemed to be an awful lot of sort of ill feeling about the fact that Mike Ashley wasn't even from Newcastle.
Yes,
but I mean he's from a lot nearer Newcastle than the Chinese guys are.
Yes, he is. Yes, certainly. Yeah. But I suppose once you agree that we'll take the big money, you lose ownership of your club anyway, don't you? It's Liverpool have been owned now by two successive American consortiums. I mean, that must have been one of the hardest things for Liverpool fans to have accepted because of the local culture of Merseyside and Liverpool, and the generations of been brought up on the ethos of Bill Shankly and that kind of stuff.
But they've been forward-thinking enough to understand that that's the world in which we live, and you can't, unfortunately, have local businessmen owning the local football team anymore, or at least if you have, it's very, very unusual.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
We'd like to hear from some Newcastle fans. 08717 223344. Do you care who owns the club? Do you actually really want to stand up and admit that you prefer to keep Mike Ashley, which is an extraordinary state of affairs, really, considering what used to be said?
The thing is, if the Chinese Chinese came in and there are other Chinese business consortiums owning other clubs, that's going to be very competitive because Chinese businessmen by nature are very competitive.
Yeah.
It's like Russian businessmen.
Yeah.
They each want to have the best, the biggest yacht, the most successful club and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it would add a great deal of panache, I think, to the Premier League to have an active group or more than one active group of Chinese businessmen where so much of the world's wealth is now concentrated in the Premier League.
No, indeed.
Yeah.
Now, an awful lot of people have something to say about your singing.
Yeah.
One here from Dan who says, good grief, horrendous to wake up to Mike Parry singing. Is he on the Benelin this morning?
Well, hang on. Anybody waking up at this time has clearly had a very heavy night, so you're not listening properly, are you? Eh?
Here's one from, where are we? Adam. The only one good thing about that, Porky, was when it was finished. Red Bull alert.
What do you mean when it's finished? That's very, very
Although
hard.
there's one in favour of you, Paul. He says, Porky, your rendition of China on the Time was fantastic.
Thank you.
Your voice is very underrated.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I've seen that one. That's great. Beautiful singing from Porky, says Holly. Thank you very much indeed, Holly. That's very kind of you.
Robbie's not happy. He says, your wailing just made the baby burst into tears in the back of the car.
Well, that's a bit unfortunate. George actually says, I don't know why everybody's having a go at Porky about the boxer size. I'm afraid I have to admit I thought exactly the same as he did.
Yes, indeed.
Thought we were talking about the size of people's boxer shorts.
Yeah, well, that is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now, talking of the influence of the Far East on the game of football in this country,
Yeah.
what about the Carabao Cup draw?
I know, it's
because this
amazing.
is the new sponsor.
Utterly amazing.
This is the new sponsor for the League Cup, right?
Yes,
Now,
yeah.
it turns out that the Carabao is a sort of energy drink
It is.
from Thailand, right? Now, I only knew that because we did a quiz, funnily enough,
Yes,
on the
that's
League
right.
Cup some months ago, and I asked you who the new sponsor was, and that's
That's
the only
right.
reason I found out who it was.
Yeah.
I've never tried this drink, but apparently, because they're sort of headquartered in Bangkok,
Yep.
they want to make the draw take place in Bangkok. I don't think there's a big problem with this. Is that we live in a global world?
Well-
What difference does it make where the draw is?
If you accept the principle of multinationalism,
Yeah.
then you ain't got a problem.
Right.
But there are some things which are still very English, and one of them is the English League Cup.
Really?
Well, yes, it was founded in the early 60s to bring an alternative domestic competition into play. And,
Yeah.
in its early years, it was played over two legs, and Birmingham were big in it and all that kind of stuff.
But don't you remember that piece of video that we found of Donald Trump
Yep.
way back in the 90s
Yep.
with Saint and Greavesy doing the League Cup draw in his boardroom?
Yeah, probably, but that was a one-off special. This is going to happen at every round. Now,
Yeah.
where this ultimately leads, and I have no evidence whatsoever this is ever going to happen,
Yeah.
but surely the people now put up the money for this competition. They've got the draw over in
Yeah.
Bangkok.
Yeah.
How many seasons will it take to have the final over in Bangkok?
I would say probably one. I bet
Yeah,
you not this
yeah.
year, not this first season, but
Yes.
the next season they'll say, "Now we want the final in
Yes.
Bangkok." I don't know whether in Bangkok they've got a stadium that's good enough to actually play the
they
League
might
Cup
build
final,
one.
but they might build one. Yeah,
Yeah.
why not?
I mean, that is an astonishing development, even in the multinationalism of football, the
Yeah.
international arena that
Yeah.
football is. I said years and years and years ago, if you remember, that one of these days I'll take the FA Cup final to Miami.
Yeah.
Because so many English people.
Well,
will
I
go
mean, they're
out there.
talking about having another Premier League game out.
That's
out in
right.
America, aren't
Of course they are, but
Yeah.
but it can't be long before they say no. I think we'll have the final out in.
Yeah, I don't think it
in
matters, to
Bangkok.
be honest. I really don't think it matters. All these teams
I
now
think
go.
It matters terribly.
All these teams go out into the Far East, into Australia.
yeah.
I mean, Liverpool have already done a post-season tour of Australia.
Yeah, but that's not an English domestic competition. The Champions League final circulates, but it's not an English domestic competition.
Well, I don't think it matters.
The League Cup very much is.
Well, yeah, but the League Cup was nearly dead on its backside, wasn't it? A couple of
Not
seasons
really.
ago.
Not really.
Yeah,
it's
it
always,
was because
it's always
teams
had pretty good sponsors.
No, but teams didn't want to put their real players
Yeah.
in. First of it, Premier League players were not playing in most of the rounds.
Yeah.
It was mostly the kids that were being put out by teams like Manchester United and Arsenal and Spurs and all that. So, I mean, I don't think there's a problem at all. In fact, I'd say bring it on.
Yeah.
Let's watch it in Bangkok. I think it'd be more exciting.
Well, I think that's a ridiculous thing to say because quite apart from anything else, it doesn't matter what time of year it is in Bangkok. If you play through a winter League Cup in this
Yeah.
country and then are suddenly told, and by the way, the final's in Bangkok
People
in
would be
April
excited
or
about that.
May. Well, yeah, but I mean, you'd have to give them, temperature training for 3 weeks before you took them out to
it's
Bangkok.
ridiculous.
Of course you would. It's completely different conditions.
Really.
I find it very worrying.
So let's check the weather in
Very
Bangkok
worrying.
in May, shall we? Is that what we should do?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, in fact, the League Cup final's a bit earlier than that. Anyway,
April.
time is very pressing and we're running out of it. This is talkSPORT.
We the lads, Newcastle, and the eastern sun is rising in the sky. It's China on the time. OK, this is the Two Mites. We are, of course, on talkSPORT, and we are delighted to say we are with Wicks. Now, right now, there's a 3 for 2 across gardens and landscaping, and it includes all decking and wood care.
Simon says, unusually, right? And you say you've got found one other plank in the rest of the world. I too thought you meant boxercise.
Thank you.
Kill me now.
Thank you.
Hashtag I'm a plank.
Yeah.
Now we've got a couple of calls to take from some Newcastle
Definitely.
fans. 08717 223344. How about this from Rich? He says having the League Cup draw in Bangkok is less ridiculous than having the FA Cup draw on the One Show. I take his point. I think he's right.
Yeah.
And then he says in May it is very humid. Well, that's all very well, Rich. But the point is the FA Cup was played in May, but the League Cup final is actually played at the end of February. Because I've just checked it. We went to see it, Manchester United against Southampton.
Are you sure it is at the end of February
this season? It is at the end of February, and if it is at the end of February, it's still quite hot in Bangkok, but it's not unbearable.
It's the height of the season, though,
No,
isn't
it's
it?
not. The temperature is between 23 degrees and about 30 degrees.
Well,
okay?
that's very hot.
That means you can
is
play...
Bangkok in the southern hemisphere?
Oh, it will be, yes.
Well, in that case, it's the height of summer.
Well, it's not the height
February,
of summer.
of course it is. It's their equivalent of July.
Well, you can play football in those temperatures.
August
You can also play football in indoor stadiums, which are cooler. So there's any number of ways of doing it. But we'll come back to that in a moment, because I don't see any reason why you can't liven up the League Cup.
Rubbish.
Although some people seem to think that that's ridiculous on the basis that people can't afford to go there. What a great idea to go to Bangkok at the end of February. Why not? Let's talk to Lewis, who's a Newcastle fan. Lewis, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, lads. How are you?
Very well, Lewis. How are you?
Is it better the devil you know in this case?
Totally agree with you. I think, Ashley kind of understands what the club is now, if I'm honest. He's been there 10 years. We've had our ups and downs, and I just don't, why change what we've got at the moment? We've got arguably one of the best managers in the world, I personally think. He's definitely in the top 10 with Rafa Benitez.
Yep.
We're back in the Premier League. Why change a good thing now with an owner who we hardly know anything about? And from what I've been hearing on the forums this morning, apparently they have a 20% stake in Atletico Madrid. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, they have a transfer embargo. That already doesn't sound good to me.
Yeah. Well, OK. Now, Lewis, supposing Mr. Ashley turns around and says, well, it's all very well you all coming out now and saying, thanks, Mr. Ashley, you're quite a benevolent owner now. But you gave him years and years of stick, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. And, I'll be the first one to say that I initially gave him a lot of stick. He sacked Keegan.
Yeah.
He got rid of some of our, best players.
Yeah.
He brought in the likes of Joe Kinnear and Dennis Wise, which personally I think was outrageous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he is arguably one of the best businessmen in the country. He's proved that. He's got a track record. He's brought the club out of debt. He's got Rafael Benitez in. He's got, it seems to me he's moving on the right track. So, yes, I'll say personally that I gave him stick, but he's learned from his mistakes.
Yeah.
And he's obviously got himself a plan with the fans and said, look, let's move forward together as a club, as a fan base, and let's produce something here at St James's Park.
But, are you representative, would you say, Lewis, of a lot of Newcastle fans when you talk to your other mates up there? Do they give you that impression as well, that Mike Ashley has finally been accepted?
Well, personally, in my family, my dad and my brother, they personally don't like Mike Ashley. But, talking to, fans and friends of mine outside my family, I actually kind of look at Ashley and think, well, hang on. This guy, like I said before, he's learned from his mistakes. He's got a track record, and he's obviously wanting to do the best for the club.
Yeah.
And personally, I would keep him on. And, you look at the Premier League now, and you see a lot of clubs with foreign owners. Mike Ashley is actually quite rare with a British owner.
He is, yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. But do you know the other accusation that could be thrown at you now, Lewis? It could be, they want to stick with Mike Ashley and all that. So once again, the Newcastle fans, too dyed in the wool about their tradition and their region and don't want to now internationalise the club, which is what would happen if Chinese owners took over. They'd accuse you of being... They'd accuse you of being too parochial, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they would. But, you've got to take it on the chin. There'll be fans like that. Look at Arsenal, for instance. Look at Arsenal. They have fans that are so, like anti-Wenger, anti-establishment. And then you've got people who are like, well, hang on, I love Wenger. He's done a lot for the club. And, the owners are okay. We look at the stadium, look at the success. There's going to be fans like that.
Yes.
And
well, a lot of people don't like change, Lewis. That's the thing, isn't it? We've got to move on, though. Thank you very much. Let's talk to David, see what he thinks. He's from Gateshead. David, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, lads. I'm just listening to that Newcastle caller saying that Mike Ashley's learned from his mistake.
Yeah.
As he forgot, we got relegated a year ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, indeed. I mean, he did bring in Rafa Benitez, though. Well, I suppose you give him some credit for that.
Yeah, which is a brilliant decision. What I'd like to say is it's a bit of a catch-22 question what you're asking. If the Chinese owners are of the similar vein to the owners of Manchester City and Chelsea and like the idea of owning a big Premier League club and winning trophies and realise that they're not going to make any money out of it, bring them on. Definitely ahead of Mike Ashley. I'm no Mike Ashley fan. But the reality is that the majority of these people buy football clubs thinking they're going to make money, and when they don't, they lose interest, and that's generally what happens. A friend of mine supports Wolves, and a year ago he said to me, we've now got the richest owners in Britain.
Right.
And what's happened to Wolves in the last year? Very little.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's no guarantee, David, that just because some big investment company comes in, a consortium, whether it's Chinese or American or Australian, there's no guarantee that that's all going to work, is it?
No. There's not. So obviously we can't guarantee what these owners are going to do. If you said that we're going to come in and invest in the team and had a genuine desire to win trophies, just for let's be honest, they come in for the glory of winning. Like Abramovich doesn't make any money at Chelsea, but he loves to sit in the box, doesn't he? And
I mean, you've been a bit unfair there. Mr. Abramovich genuinely revels in being the owner of Chelsea. They've won the Champions League. Yeah, no, you're right. But he doesn't just like going into the box. He's got very little ego as Chelsea manager. He just takes the sheer joy of running a football club efficiently.
So he loves to win trophies. That's what
he does.
He loves the excitement, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
That's what we need. But if we're going to get somebody come in who hasn't got any interest in football, just wants to own a club to make a bit of money, it's not going to work. But I've got to take issue with Mike Graham.
Have you? It's not my day today, is it?
Type the Newcastle fans, like a lot of people, like a lot of people in the media. You said before, and it's getting a bit boring. Newcastle fans don't like Cockneys. That's a load of rubbish.
I didn't say that.
Like people.
I didn't say that, David. No, I did not say that. David, no, listen, I didn't say... Well, I'll let you make your point after you've heard what I actually said. What I said was, when Mike Ashley appointed Alan Pardew, and when Alan Pardew was the manager, the complaint from Newcastle fans was it was a Cockney mafia running Newcastle, and they didn't like it.
That's a load of rubbish. When Mike Ashley took over, it wasn't our fault that a man who came in and made catastrophic football decisions got relegated. Yeah. It wasn't our fault that he happened to be a Cockney. Right. But people like you associated the Newcastle fans.
What do you mean people like me?
Cockneys. There's a number of people lived in the North East who are all from London. It's irrelevant.
Okay. So you didn't care. You never used the words Cockney mafia.
There was certain fans who did, yes.
Oh, yes, okay. So they did use those words.
Fans. It's not all Newcastle fans.
I never said it was all Newcastle fans. I never said it was all Newcastle fans.
But, I mean, some people use the word, the expression northern hater, which is what you are.
No,
I don't know why. I don't know why.
I don't know why either.
I don't know why you've got
Listen, David, I appreciate your clarification on that point. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, David.
David's a Newcastle fan. You're the one that's been monstering these terrible songs about Newcastle and about China and about all the rest of it for most of your life.
Not at all.
Anyway, people love me in Newcastle. We did a great show up there with the two mics, also in Manchester, in all parts of the north of England. I am very much revered.
Self-delusion at its very worst.
This is talkSPORT. We are the two mics. We're going to do a bit of listography coming up a bit later on, which will include, thanks to one or two suggestions from very many people on Twitter, the 3 best car journeys we ever took, or the 3 most dramatic car journeys, I suppose.
3 most amazing, I think.
Yeah, most amazing. So it could be not necessarily the best, could be the worst as well.
Could be the worst.
One of them might be the one you and I took down to Portsmouth, because we had to sit in the same car as each other for quite a considerable period of time.
Did we?
You don't remember that, do you?
Portsmouth.
Yes. You don't remember driving down to Portsmouth?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's no time for that at the moment because now we are going to talk to Mr. Noel Fitzpatrick, Dr. Noel Fitzpatrick, actually, I should say, who is, of course, the TV Supervet. He's a man who every week does remarkable things to save the lives, not always save the lives, but to, as often as possible save the lives of people's beautiful and famous and very much loved pets.
That's right.
And there's never a dry eye out in my house when this show is on. Well, let's talk to Dr. Fitzpatrick now. Noel, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, guys. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on the show.
Not at all.
Great to hear from
As
you.
I
Thank
said,
you.
Noel, your show, my kids love it. My the other half loves it. I love it. I mean, we were watching Henry the Labrador the other week, and it was really quite a tearful experience, I'd have to say.
Isn't it lovely that it reaches out across the ages and, 8 or 80-year-olds recognise the journey of the journey of love we set out to make in the first place.
Sure.
That's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right. And your show has become quite a sort of a successful one, hasn't it, on Channel 4? It's just been expanded, I understand. There's going to be more, a bigger series than you originally thought it was going to be.
You're not joking. I'm taking a little respite in the bathroom right now, talking to you away from the cameras. So, yeah, they're around a lot. I think we're in Series 9 now, Series 10 in the autumn, I guess. So it's, but, the reason I did it is because I was so frustrated with not making any difference. And now, when I started out, it wasn't even legitimate to say mum and dad of the dog. And now everybody says, oh, yeah, mum and dad of the dog, of course, because they're family members.
That's right. Now, Noel, have you become recognised as the guardian angel of the veterinary world? And what I mean by that is, are there cases where, imagine if we were watching Casualty now, human beings on hospital, and they all gathered round the bed and they're all saying, there's no hope, switch the machine off. Are you the guy in the animal world who steps forward and says, no, do not switch that machine off, I can save this dog?
Not always, no. I think what folks realise, you alluded to it earlier, that we don't always save them, and I try and show it as real as I possibly can. I'm definitely not the guy that says don't turn that off if it's the right thing to do, and that's the most harrowing and most difficult part of the series, is that we have to sometimes say goodbye. So, yeah, we do some stuff that has never been done before.
That's what I mean. I mean, you have a reputation for, going the extra mile and getting results sometimes that other vets might not have got.
Well, that's because technology's moved on, and, we got stem cells, we've got three-dimensional scaffolds, and we can rebuild body parts like we never could before. So things have changed, and I think for a long time, animals were used as an experiment for humans, and they still are. There's more than 4,000 dogs in the United Kingdom every year to give their lives to give humans implants. So why don't we, implants and drugs, so why don't we actually listen up and move forward together? That's the way forward.
Now, this Thursday, it sounds like another fascinating situation. You've got Teddy the Shih Tzu, which is a little bit of a cross, brought in to see you guys with severely deformed front legs. Tell us what happens then.
I have no idea, because I never watched the show. I'm always at work. So I actually have no idea which dogs are on this Thursday.
Oh, okay.
I am always at work when the show is on. I'm always operating. So it's nice that folks are watching it. But I think that the reason for me coming on your show is really important, and it's very important to me. I don't miss the opportunity. We can talk about lots of different cases, but none of those dogs, none of them, and none of those cats would have any chance if we weren't moving technology forward. And the reason I've come on the show to talk to you is to talk about One Live, which is a music festival, to try and explain to people that enough is enough. Animals give us so much in our lives. It's time to give them a fair deal. And for a long time, we just exploited them to get what we want. And what we really should be doing is looking at a human with cancer and a dog with cancer side by side, looking at a human with arthritis and a dog with arthritis side by side, a human with infection and a dog with infection side by side, because it's all the same. And on the 8th of July in Guildford, Stoke Park in Guildford, we've got a big music festival called One Live. And, we have a tagline, it's called One Planet, One Love, One Medicine. And I strongly believe that we can replace hatred and all the other stuff that's going on in society if we have a Live Aid every year that says we stand up for each other, we stand up for the animals, we stand up for society, no matter what race, colour, creed, religion you are, and you stand in the field together and do the right thing. That's what I do.
It sounds absolutely fantastic. And before that, Noel, I think you've got a couple of dog fests, haven't you? 17th and 18th of June up in Cheshire. You've got one in Hertfordshire.
Yeah, this is one of my favourite things to do. So on I think the next weekend, isn't it, in Cheshire, and then the following weekend, the 24th and the 25th of June in Nebworth Park, isn't it?
Nebworth House, in Hertfordshire.
Nebworth. It's lucky you have the information, because I kind of just turn up to a field full of dogs and think,
that's
this
right.
is fabulous.
Yeah.
And when we sat, honestly, For people who don't like dogs, it's an extraordinary thing, because I've never seen anybody turn up in that field without a smile on their face.
Exactly.
Everybody feels part of something special, and dogs go around sniffing each other's behinds and running around the field, creating mayhem. They have the best day ever, and all of the humans that they look after also have a pretty good time, I think.
Yeah.
And is there a sense as well, Noel, that not everybody's on the same page? I mean, we read stories just in the papers today about sort of an increase in the numbers of dogs being kidnapped or dog-napped, if you like.
Yeah, 5 a day.
You still see these horrible stories once in a while of people putting poison out for dogs walking around. I mean, I've got a Labrador as well. There's kind of diseases, and there's people out there who don't share perhaps your optimism and love of all animals, and isn't that terrible?
They're idiots, and they're complete and utter idiots, because they are in the minority and they ruin it for the majority. But look, this is true of terrorism, it's true of hatred, it's true of any crime to animal or mankind. You asked me about those specifics of, dog napping or dog poisoning, whatever. No matter what your bad deed is, that's because you've got, at some point in your life, a vacuum of love in your soul. And I strongly believe, and I would say this to anybody, it sounds almost evangelical, but I strongly believe that if you hold the paw of an animal in life or in death, and that unconditional love gets into your life, you can cure terrorism, you can cure hatred, because that love for mankind is what puts human in humanity.
Yeah. No, I completely understand what you're saying there. If everybody could sort of, key into that or infuse it into their system, we'd be a much better world, wouldn't we? Do you sometimes feel, Noel, that you're just talking about these dog fests you're going to in Cheshire and Hertfordshire? Do you feel a bit like a sort of a rock star on tour? You just turn up in a big auditorium, but instead of having fans there who are shouting and screaming, you've got all the dogs barking and...
No, I feel like a giant pooper scooper, because I go around picking up poo all day.
Right, okay, not pleasant.
I don't think John Bon Jovi has to do that in his life, does he?
I don't think he does. I don't think
The security guy nudged me the last time, and he said, this Dogfest stuff, mate, it's all very well and good, but would John Bon Jovi pick up poo? And I think not. No, it's... what's lovely is that people relate to the message.
Yes.
I have a wonderful talk I'm going to give everybody at Cheshire and at Nebworth House in the next couple of weekends, and it's a talk about love and hope. It's a talk about that is stuff that's really needed in a world of political unrest, in a world where people hate each other. Everybody in that field will love each other, and importantly, the dogs will love them and they'll love the dogs.
Yeah, it's fantastic. What a message to put over.
It is. It is. What a great message to put over. I might bring my crazy dog along as well.
Bring your dog. Come and say hi.
We will definitely do that.
You need a hug from me in your life.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, I'm not sure I want a hug from you, Noel, but thank you anyway.
Yes.
You can certainly hug my. You can certainly hug my dog. Yeah, all right. Well, we'll see what we can do about that. Listen, Noel, have a great time.
Thank you very much.
And make sure you skybox the Supervet this Thursday. You can have a look and see what you're doing.
Let's see what I'm doing.
All
right, guys. Listen, thanks so much. Have a great day.
And to you.
Thank you very much
Noel
indeed.
Fitzpatrick, what a lovely man.
Yeah, super guy.
So he thinks love will conquer all.
Yeah, I mean,
he wouldn't agree with that, would
does.
you?
No, he does. He's like a rock star.
Yeah.
Love is,
love is all you need.
Yeah, love is all you need. I was going to say...
the words there, didn't you?
No, it wasn't, because I was doing the other one. John Lennon wrote a song called Love. Love is meaning
I don't sing
to
anymore.
be loved.
Please don't sing anymore.
Yeah.
You've already lost about half the audience the first time around.
Monday, 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 must be funny in the rich man's world.
This is the Two Mics on talkSPORT with Wix. Right now there's 3 for 2 across gardens and landscaping, including all decking and wood care.
Excellent. So I like to hear.
Happy about that, are you?
Yeah, very much so. Now, we're playing money there because, once again, one of these rich lists has come out. They're always published by Forbes magazine. Yeah. Do you remember every Friday when we were in America, a guy used to come round, on a bicycle with his rucksack on and deliver all his magazines? The one I always used to go to first was Forbes.
Forbes was the was run by a guy called Malcolm Forbes.
It was.
Who was
himself
rather
a
eccentric billionaire, wasn't he?
Yeah.
They had the Forbes building somewhere down the bottom of Fifth Avenue, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right.
And they were, I think, the first magazine to come up with the rich list?
Well, I think the
Because
Sunday
there's a few of
Times.
them.
The Sunday Times had been doing it beforehand.
No, not really. No, the Forbes started it in
Really?
America, yeah.
Think so?
But then there was another magazine that started doing one too, and then the Sunday Times got into it a little bit later on.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, they've just issued their last one. Top Britons on Forbes rich list
Yeah.
by 2016 earnings. So this is
Now, you're not on the list
the picture.
again, I
I'm not on the
presume.
list, no, but I still have an ambition to get onto it,
Do you?
because if you do that, you've been successful.
Yeah.
Right, top earners, this is the British list first. Top earners,
Okay.
J.K. Rowling,
Yeah.
the author of the Harry Potter books.
Sure.
£75 million.
Right.
What a woman. What
And is
a
that
success.
in total, or is that just this year?
No, that's 2016.
Right.
These are figures for the
So
whole
that's
of
all-
2016.
that's just the year?
That is just 1 year.
That's unbelievable.
That's
isn't
1
it?
year. Yeah, well, if you look in the Sunday Times riches here, accumulated wealth, it's 2/3 of a billion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's doing
Incredible.
pretty well each year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Coldplay, 69.5 million. Isn't that amazing?
No, it is pretty
Because they
amazing.
haven't really had any hit records. That must be touring, is it?
Well, they've been touring a lot, yeah. Well, they had
Yeah.
a new album that came out, I think, probably within the last 12 months.
Yes, probably.
So that's probably counting it.
Okay,
Because I
Adele-
presume this will actually be 2016, you said, right?
Yes.
So January to December of 2016.
Yes, that's right. Yes,
I
absolutely.
think that's
Yeah.
when that came out.
Adele, by comparison,
Yeah.
who has had, I think, so many successful LPs now, 54.5 million.
Yeah.
Elton John,
Yes.
who's been around longer than, the oak tree, 47.4 million pounds.
Yes.
And most of that must be from being on the road earnings.
Well, he
like-
does he not? A huge sort of...
In Vegas and all that?
A huge kind of position in Vegas
Yeah.
where he just plays one concert after another.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney, 46.7, again from touring. Rory
Yes.
McIlroy, the golfer,
Yeah.
24, 25, is he? 40 million,
Yeah.
39.5 million.
Not bad.
Calvin Harris, who's he?
He's the guy that used to date... what's her name? I can't remember her name now.
He's a DJ, isn't he?
Well, he's not
How
a
can
DJ.
DJs get rich?
Well, he's not a DJ.
thought he
Taylor
was.
Swift, did he not date Taylor
Yeah, he
Swift
did,
for a
yeah,
while?
yeah.
He's an artiste, if you like.
Artiste, okay.
He's
Well-
from Scotland.
He's a very successful artist.
He's incredibly successful.
Lewis
yeah.
Hamilton, who
Yeah.
just won the Canadian Grand Prix on Sunday, 36.3 million. And then, in 10th place, but I mean, that doesn't make him a bad person, Simon Cowell on 34.4 million.
Yeah.
Not bad at all.
I mean, he might not like being in 10th place. 'Cause he generally likes to be in
he'd
first
probably
place.
be higher. But anyway, look, just globally.
I know
as
you
well.
love these lists of rich people.
Well,
it makes you
of
feel all
course you do.
warm and fuzzy inside, doesn't
That's
it?
right. Now, some of those are in the global list. The global list is headed up by P. Diddy.
P. Diddy, right?
The rapper.
Okay.
£102.7 million in 1 year.
Didn't he
That's not
change
bad.
his name recently?
Well, they've got him down as P. Diddy, the
Yeah.
rapper. Beyonce's in the list. J.K. Rowling. Drake, who's a rapper as well.
Drake
Never
is
heard of
also a
him?
rapper, yep.
Yeah, never heard of him.
You never heard of him? Okay.
Cristiano Ronaldo, 73.4 million in
Yes.
1 year. In
Okay.
1 year, right? I told you the £1 million footballer's already with us, and that just proves it,
Yeah.
okay?
£1 million a week.
£1 million a week,
Yeah.
yeah. The Weeknd, apparently he's a rapper as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, 72 million.
Okay.
Now, that's 6. I'm going to jump to 8. Coldplay in 8. James Patterson, the author, incredibly, 68.7 million. What does he write?
Don't
James
know.
Patterson. He writes good books anyway.
Well, he obviously is very
Sells a lot.
successful.
And then LeBron.
I've never read one.
LeBron James,
Yeah.
basketball star.
He's a basketball star, yeah.
67.8.
King James, he's known
King
as.
James.
Yeah.
Now, the one I've missed out
Yeah.
is number 7 on the global list, and it's a gentleman called Howard Stern.
Howard Stern, yes.
And he earned in 1 year £71.1 million, and they've got him listed here as DJ, but
Yeah.
in fact he's not. He's a radio broadcaster, isn't he?
Well, he's not just a radio broadcaster. He has a TV show,
Yeah.
which I think he still does.
but
and
he started
had,
off as a radio broadcaster.
He did indeed.
So,
and he
yeah.
started off, I think, in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
He was constantly getting fired
Yeah.
because he was always coming up against the American equivalent of Ofcom,
Right.
which is the FCC.
Yes.
He's always getting thrown off the air for doing things in
Tasteless.
bad taste
Yes,
and all sorts of
and
awful
offensive
things.
and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, he
yeah.
once rang up, and I can't imagine what the reaction would be in this country if
Yeah.
somebody did something like this.
Yes.
But there was a plane crash in Washington where a plane had taken off from National Airport
Right.
and plunged into the
Into the
Potomac,
Potomac, yeah.
the river. Which
Well,
was
that was the
only-
famous film that was just made recently with...
Well, that was about the one that plunged into the Hudson.
Oh, that's the Hudson.
Similar
sorry,
kind of
you're right.
idea.
Yeah.
And he rang up Washington Airlines, who were the airline responsible, and said, could you please tell me how much the airfare is from National Airport to the Potomac, to the 15th Street Bridge?
Yeah.
And, of course, all hell broke loose, and they were horrified and said,
Yeah.
well, that's disgusting. How
Yeah.
would you even ask such a question?
I
But, you know,
do think that's a pretty pointless question, frankly, because...
well, it was that kind of humour that got him into trouble all the
Yes,
time because
yeah.
he thought that was funny,
Yeah.
and people who really didn't think that was funny at all.
And did he do this call live?
I think he did, because you can do that in America.
Of course
because
you
they
can,
have all sorts of rules. We have all sorts of rules that they don't have.
That's right, yeah.
And then he would get involved in swearing. He would have these kind of risque shows with people coming on who were like porn stars and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right.
But then he had a very successful TV show, and then he had a very successful couple of movies that he put out as well.
Right, OK. So just tell us, if he was so offensive and he kept getting fired and all that, what structure did he then build around himself to earn £71.1 million last year?
Well, he got to the point where he said, I'm not going to go on normal radio anymore, because normal radio is too kind of, constricting, if you like. There's too many rules and regulations, and I have to be told what to do by people I don't have any respect for. So he said, I'm going to go and set up my own satellite radio network, which is what he did, run by a company called Sirius, who sometimes carry out stuff, actually, over in America.
They do, I know,
because, they've got a whole satellite network. But when they started out, and I think this was probably quite a few years ago now, the original idea was that they offered him $100 million for the first year that he was going to broadcast. And people in the business said, this is crazy. You are absolutely bonkers. Nobody is going to pay a monthly subscription fee to listen to anybody on radio, because radio's free.
Yeah.
They then said nobody is going to have to buy... Because in order to hear it, you had to buy a special sort of satellite radio.
How much did that cost?
Which cost about 25 quid.
25 quid, yeah.
And so they said, nobody's going to do this, right?
Yes.
And within something like... I think within something like 2 months, they had about 1 million subscribers who had already paid $15 a month.
Yeah.
So they'd already made, some ridiculous amount of money.
So after 6 months, they've got their money. They got their money back.
They got their money back.
7 months, they were $5 million in profit. After 8 months, they were $20 million in profit. That's an incredible
it was just one of those businesses that they just took a chance on, and he's now making what a year?
$70 million a year.
Yeah,
yeah. So that's not bad, is it?
Incredible,
not bad at all.
Very funny guy. And one of the great things that people used to say about him was that if you like Howard Stern, you listen to him for 10 minutes. If you don't like Howard Stern, you listen to him for 20.
Oh, that's right, yeah,
and that was
absolutely.
one of the things.
Well, I mean, there must be a future in this massive wealth-building operation.
Well, you now want to start a satellite radio business?
Well, I mean, at those sort of costs, we could buy our own rocket and put our own satellite up, couldn't we? Huh?
This is why your TV station went bankrupt.
What? Who said that?
This is talkSPORT.
Fall for Ali. Save the first time, put in the second time by Dele Ali.
Rose with the ball in, and the glancing header from Lallana, and England have got their second.
In the likes of Lallana, Ali, Rashford, Sterling, Oxlade, we've got good creative players.
Hart on his line. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, right-footed. Hart has saved it, diving away to his right-hand side.
It was never my intention to start him in the game tomorrow in Stade de France anyway, but I needed to make sure he understood that.
Into the penalty area, on his right foot. Brilliant goal again from Dimitri Payet. Griezmann's header. 1-0 France in the 90th minute.
They made it to the final not too long ago. They've got great players all the way through their squad. It was a friendly, but it's against a great French team and one that we're looking forward to the challenge. So it'll be a tough game, but one I'm definitely looking forward to, and I'm sure the rest of the boys are as well.
After the Scotland scenario, they could do with a decent performance, England, but I'm not sure we're going to get one, to be honest, because poor old Pep Southgate is not exactly getting my juices going.
Trouble is, at the fag end of the season, right, which is what it is, smoke me fun cigarette and drown it out and all that kind of stuff.
Who's that supposed to be?
Well, that's why it's called the fag end of the season, because you've worn down to the filter on your cigarette, and that's called the fag end of the season.
I see.
It's an old-fashioned expression from the working class north. Of course, you hate the working class north, so you wouldn't know about it.
This is your mantra now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you think that you've somehow got to get one up on me.
But the point is, there are so many incentives for the England players, and Harry Kane seems to have taken so well to captaincy and the responsibilities of captaincy. It'll be a joy to watch him again tonight.
Well, you say that, but I'm not sure that's what you said the other day. Let's talk to Mark Saggers, about who knows an awful lot more about the situation than you do. Mr. Saggers is over in Paris. Very good morning, very good afternoon to you, I should say, Mark.
Yeah, very good afternoon to you as well. I'm just actually running away from an England band at the moment on the banks of the Seine, overlooking Notre Dame.
Yes, good.
And it's a wonderful day. It's warm. Warm. It's going to warm tonight. It's going to get even hotter, around 25, 26 at the Stade de France this evening.
Yes.
I was just interested in what you were saying there about England and everything. One thing that, you look at where we are. We are a year tomorrow away from the start of the World Cup in Russia.
Yes.
If England players are as tired as they are at the moment, in a year's time, we won't be getting out of the group again. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the Spurs players have been to Hong Kong. The Liverpool players right at the end of the season went over to Australia. The Premier League don't give a hoot about England, and they've come back. They played. They were stale. They were lethargic.
So what is your suggestion?
But to be honest, Mark, they're stale and lethargic.
I wouldn't play internationals this time of year. They're pointless.
But, Mark, what I would say to you, and I don't know whether you would agree, is that they look pretty stale and lethargic whenever they put on an England shirt anyway, don't they?
Yeah, well, they do. And yet again the other day, even against Scotland, that slow pace of passing the ball at the back. We've got some wonderfully exciting players. I'm not going to say that they're all top quality by any means, but when they play for their clubs, and I don't want anyone to use the excuse, it's because they're playing with better players. But there's enough players within this England side to actually play at pace. I'm not sure what Gareth Southgate wants to do. He came away from the weekend saying we got a point away from home. Job done. Job was not done. It was simply awful as far as I was concerned.
I agree. I agree more.
Yeah, I mean the thing is.
Another interest. Sorry, Mike.
Go on. Yeah, go on.
This is the attitude and the difference. Hugo Lloris made one of the biggest blunders of his career for France to lose against Sweden.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In the last minute.
Yeah.
What has Didier Deschamps, the manager, said? You are my number one. I'm playing the team that I want to start the World Cup in a year's time. Hugo Lloris, you ain't resting today. You're getting back out there to get that out of your mind.
Yeah.
What's happened to Jack Hart? Sort of standing in the middle of the goal, misses those 2 late free kicks. And then Gareth Southgate, it was never my intention to play him at all in this game.
Yeah.
He's going to give a half to Heaton and a half to Butland.
Yeah.
Well, get yourself sorted here, Gareth, because I don't want to go into another tournament in a year's time where we're still experimenting and then getting knocked out before he's got an idea of who plays where.
Yeah.
I was having a big row with Jim Proudfoot about this last night and Stuart Pearce.
Yeah.
I want to see, in the limited games that we have left, nearly the side that he wants to start a World Cup with should we qualify.
Yeah, I agree with
and
you.
of course, and I don't want to say any injured players, however good they are, or anybody that feels a little bit tired.
Yeah.
We've got to get hard. We've got to get professional. It was great that the under-20s won that tournament, but a World Cup, good. But it wasn't the World Cup, nowhere near the World Cup.
Yeah, nevertheless.
Yeah, no, of course, Porky jumped all over that bandwagon because it was the one thing he thought he couldn't see Everton getting anywhere near.
Bandwagon there.
Yeah, exactly.
That there is definitely the signs of movement right the way through the young age groups to play, to get the tournament experience, to get to the first team.
Exactly.
Whether any of them will get in the first team of the Premier League clubs on a regular basis is another matter
Well,
entirely. Which means we should have at least 6 home-based players in every Premier League side. It ain't ever going to happen. Gareth Southgate has got to get rid of this negative attitude. And the other thing is, finally on this, it is no good hoodwinking, as the politicians have found out. And by the way, yours was an excellent programme overnight on the election night.
Thank you.
You can't hoodwink the public anymore. They can see with their very own eyes that if you've stunk the place out playing football, say it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
If that upsets players, they ain't going to fight for you in the moments that matter, are they?
Right,
It is only a friendly,
I'm
mind
getting
you,
wound
Mark.
up here, and it's a
You are.
beautiful day in Paris.
It's only a friendly, mate. Go and have a glass of
chilled.
Go and have a glass of Bordeaux and some brie or something like that. I'll tell you what upset me today, Mark, and this is where we've gone wrong already with these kids from the under-20 squad. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, right? He's posing on page 3 of a newspaper with his very buxom-looking girlfriend, messing about with a trophy. Now, what on earth are they allowing him to do that for?
He's celebrating success,
no,
that's
sorry.
why.
No, I'm sorry. He should not be messing about with a trophy
Rubbish.
with his, lingerie-wearing, scantily clad girlfriend. I don't think that sends out the right message at all.
You've never had an objection to lingerie-clad women before looking at them.
Well, not with the World Cup trophy.
It's only a Junior World Cup trophy. Listen, just getting on to your beat about Gareth Southgate, please, Mark. I do think that it's too patrician to sort of come forward, look as though you've eaten a dictionary and you might have spent 6 months at Harvard Business School and start talking about producing more leaders and taking them down to Marine camps to produce their leadership qualities. What we want is more good footballers.
Practice football, that's what I've always said.
You know what a dressing room's like? If you don't like somebody at the start of it, hardly by going off with the Royal Marines are you going to like them after that, are you?
No, exactly.
No, there is so much done to spin us all away from what actually is happening.
Yeah.
You have got to get 11 players out on the field for England who want to give everything for the World Cup
Yes.
and just come off that field having left nothing out there.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
And every time you give this generation an excuse not to perform, they will take it.
They will. Now, let me ask. Can I ask you another question, Mark? Because you're the man on the spot tonight. The most exciting thing for me is going to be the trial of this video assistant referee, because we'll see whether or not it's any use. We'll see whether it works in one way, shape, or form. What do you reckon?
Well, for me as well, I mean, I was one of the first, if you remember, back in South Africa with that Frank Lampard goal that was never a goal. It's a goal. We had to bring that in.
Yeah.
They're finally bringing in other stuff. But, there are different ways of dealing with it. If somebody dives tonight in the penalty box, even trying to feign for a penalty, and they get caught on this video, that should be a 4-game international ban. That'll soon stop them doing it. Until we actually match the punishment with the prints, the pictures and what have you, until we do that, it's nonsensical. It won't make much of a difference. But I do want to see those video replays and the referee and everybody involved tonight having the bottle to get it right.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Mark, just
Tremendous
to emphasise
stuff.
the point you've made, it's a very good point. We aren't going to unearth any great genius footballers during the next Premier League season. So why doesn't he start putting together the team for Russia right now, starting tonight?
Absolutely.
And as you quite rightly say, get them playing together in half a dozen games, 8 games or something before Russia, because we aren't going to get any more great players. We all know who England's best players are. Just play them in the right combination.
Yeah, Stuart Pearce will tell you that it's a transient form. You can't do that in international football. Why not? The French are going to thinking of doing that.
Exactly.
That's the way they're going to do it at the moment.
Yeah.
Some of them are up in arms there, Press, that is the way they're going at it.
Yeah.
But they will start the tournament in Russia knowing exactly what their side is.
Indeed.
We will probably be giving late fitness tests to 2 or 3 and deciding who... And by the way, just finally, if you're going to play our top players, stop playing them out of position.
Yeah.
Find a team that works.
Exactly. John Stones, midfield, no thank you.
No, John Stones midfield, Rashford wide right. It's not the way to go. He is best going down the centre. If you can't choose between him and the man you've given the captaincy to, make a big, bold decision, Gareth Southgate.
Very good advice.
Gareth Southgate is an international manager. He doesn't have to worry about upsetting anybody. If he does upset them and they pull a Mardy, then kick him out.
Yeah, I agree. Couldn't agree more, Mark. Yeah. Great sentiments. Fantastic show tonight coming up from 7 o'clock. Mark Saggers will be very, very wound up by the time 7 hours have passed. I can tell you that. Because we've had a couple of glasses of Chardonnay. Things might have taken off.
A couple.
For him. We shall see. Anyway, tonight it's live. It's France versus England. It is video assistant referees as well. This is the Two Mics on talkSPORT with Wicks. Right now there's 3 for 2 across gardens and landscaping, including all decking and wood care. Now, I'm delighted to say that we don't often run into one of our old compadres from the world of Fleet Street. It was really glamorous and very exciting and terribly dangerous.
Yes.
He is, of course, the one and only Wednesday Clarkson, author, bon viveur, I suppose you might say.
Yes. Bon vivant, actually, is the right
call him
way
that if you wish.
It is,
Call him that if you wish. And he's got a new book out called Killing Goldfinger.
That's right.
And he's got a couple of tales to tell from times gone by as well that we'll get to a little bit later on.
Absolutely. But this is a marvellous book, Wednesday. Thanks for coming in and joining us.
Thanks.
And it's about the life and death of Britain's gangster number 1, Goldfinger, otherwise known as John Palmer, and
from your neck of the woods,
from my neck of the woods. Now, the first question I've got to ask you, just so that our listeners can focus in absolutely on this case, this is the man who was shot 6 times by an assassin in his own garden and died. And when the police arrived, the cops arrived, they reported back that we've got a man here who's just died of a heart attack.
Yes, Keystone Cops would be an understatement, I think.
How is that even possible?
Well, it appears that it was all about the fact that the bullets were very high velocity, but they left very small marks on the outside of the body.
Right.
Palmer had a heart operation where they'd opened him up a month earlier. He'd fallen from his tractor as he was shot, and the police, believe it or not, and the paramedics, and all of them missed the bullet holes and just saw the open wound.
And was there not much blood then? Is that the
No,
point?
it was an internal. These bullets did enormous damage internally.
Right.
But as you say, 6 times. And then the post-mortem wasn't till 5 days later because the guy was on holiday.
Yes.
and the rest is history, as they say.
And they found him. So who shot him, in your view, and what's the conclusion in your book, and why?
Right. Well, there are a number of obvious suspects, but unlike the police who say there are 16,000, there are all his timeshare victims, which is a very easy way out for the police, who incidentally contacted me about a year ago, absolutely genuinely, asked me to help them with their inquiries, which I found extraordinary and a real sign of desperation from them, to be frank. But in answer to your question, Mike, I've got my suspicions. There are 3 or 4 people that are in there who may or may not have done it. But for a moment, I'm going to take us to inside the mind of the hitman who did it.
Oh, yes.
He jumped over a garden wall, right, in the middle of a summer afternoon with loads of people in the park next door to the house where Palmer lived, and shot him 6 times and then jumped back over and ran off. That takes a lot of bottle.
Yeah.
That wasn't like a bloke sitting on the back of a scooter or something taking a few pops at someone.
So this man was a professional assassin?
Absolutely. And actually, he must have been paid enormously well because he did it in broad daylight, literally, and he did it in a way, as I just said, that you wouldn't normally expect a hitman to do.
No, you certainly
And Goldfinger was one of these, what you might call, I suppose, I mean, as much as a nasty piece of work that he was, he kind of had this aura about him, didn't he? He got himself onto the Sunday Times rich list. He was involved
Equal with the Queen.
Yeah.
Equal richest as the Queen.
I mean, he got himself involved in what we know to be some of the biggest sort of heists in the history of the country, right?
Well, his nickname Goldfinger, we should perhaps explain, is because he handled the gold from the Brinksmat robbery in 1983, which was the biggest ever gold bullion robbery, and helped smelt it. So he literally got his fingers dirty, hence the name Goldfinger.
On gold, yeah, and that was it. Now, in this world in which he moved, right, how did he manage to get away to Tenerife? He escaped prosecution in an Old Bailey trial, didn't he?
Yes, he did, and, obviously I'm not going to suggest in any way that the judges or anyone else were crooked back then, but...
that would be an outrage.
It would be outrageous, and I wouldn't ever dare to say that. But I will say this, it is extraordinary because he was found not guilty of involvement with the Brinksmat robbery. As you say, he hot-footed it to Tenerife before his trial, so he didn't know that he was going to get off it, and then piled a lot of the money taken from smelting that gold straight into timeshare, which ended up earning him more money than all the other criminals he knew put together, who were insanely jealous of him because he was doing what they considered to be a legitimate business.
Yeah, exactly. Except it wasn't that legitimate, was it?
No, it wasn't.
I've read the book, and he seemed to work on the timeshare basis that you give me your money, and then I might give you a timeshare apartment, but if I don't come back and ask me for the money, otherwise the boys will be round to break your toes.
That's exactly it. And not surprisingly, he was addicted to money, literally. This is a guy who was illiterate. He couldn't read or write his entire life. He used to secretly tape record people during meetings. Initially, he did this simply because he couldn't write down what they were saying. And with those tapes, that helped him survive till the age of 65, because this guy had death threats against him for the last 25 years of his life. The police even warned him of people being out to kill him, and the fact he got to the age he did was a miracle.
Yeah, it was an absolute miracle.
When he was finally assassinated, did that sort of change forever the rather complex landscape of gangsterism in the country?
Well, yes, it did, and of course the fact that for 5 days everyone thought he died of a heart problem throughout the underworld, they were totally thrown by this. There was a stunned silence from most of them for 5 days. Then when they heard he'd been hit, no one was surprised. But as you say, it left a vacuum that will now be being filled, or it's 2 years since he was killed, by Eastern Europeans and Russians.
I was going to say, isn't one of the reasons why it all happened is because he did eventually serve a jail sentence, and while he was in Nick, the Russians took over his Tenerife operation, and he never got back. What's going to happen to all his money, Wensley, now that he's dead?
Well, that's a very good question. He believed in stashes. You know, even in this day and age, this guy used to stash money all over.
Well, it's like
the
movie American Gangster, isn't it? You know, you've always got to have getaway money.
Exactly.
No matter how big you get.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he had money, and has money, I should think, stashed in a lot of places that perhaps no one ever knew apart from him, so died with him. In answer to your original question, there's a lot of money floating around. I have no idea where it's gone. At one stage, he was being blackmailed by a major criminal family who wanted him to pay them £1 million a month. Otherwise, they would kill him. But he then went and died before he made the first instalment.
So they didn't get it?
No, they never got it.
So they've lost out now.
Yeah, so they're not suspects.
No, exactly. No, there's no reason for killing
Now, listen,
him.
we're almost going to be out of time here, so I've got to ask Wensley about a particular story that I happen to know he's about to tell you.
What?
Because there were several encounters between all three of us in previous his previous lives. I mean, I think Wednesday and I first met over in America back in the 80s at some point or other. But Wednesday remembers a time when he met you in Italy. Tell us the story,
it was
Wednesday.
the World Cup 1990.
Oh, yeah.
I very cheekily was in a bar filming all the hacks who I'd just stopped being a hack maybe 6 months earlier, having a pint. You went completely potty.
Why?
Took a swing at me because I was filming, missed, and we had it all on film.
Really?
Did it ever make its way to the small screen, this particular
I think
attack?
it did, but I think we actually put a little distortion across your face.
That's not me. That's not me. to get involved in
well, it doesn't look like you now. That's true.
No, it certainly doesn't like me now. But actually, I mean...
You were arrested in something.
I was arrested subsequent to that. I got arrested.
When I heard about that, I wasn't surprised.
Yeah, exactly. I got arrested by the old Carabinieri, what are they called?
Carabinieri,
who took me away thinking that I was trying to pursue a particular young lady, which I was, because there was a rumour she was having associations with footballers.
Yeah, but drinking Chianti by the pint isn't always a great thing.
Yeah,
it's never a great idea in the sunshine.
That is true.
Now, while you're writing, sorry, go on.
Just one last question, because I've read the book again. I mean, wasn't Goldfinger one of the very last people to see Robert Maxwell alive?
Yes, he was, which is an extraordinary thing.
Yeah.
2 days before Maxwell died, he got a call from one of Maxwell's people saying that Maxwell needed to launder some money because the other thing Goldfinger was doing in Tenerife, he was laundering money on a huge scale.
Yeah.
And he went down to see him on his yacht, on Maxwell's yacht. They had an argument, didn't get on very well. Within 48 hours, Maxwell was dead.
Isn't that amazing?
Incredible.
Yeah. And Maxwell wanted to launder money.
Yes, it was his last 10 million he had left.
So isn't that a clue as to what Robert Maxwell was up to? Everybody said, did he fall? Did he commit suicide? Whatever. I mean, he was trying to launder money hours before his death.
And he was being very bombastic and rude to Palmer and probably anyone else who was trying to help him.
Bizarre. And just one last question, because we've got to get out of here. But, I mean, when you write a book like this, you must come up against some pretty nasty characters. I mean, is there ever a fear that they're going to be knocking at your door one night at midnight?
Well, I've had a few threatening emails, but that's not a very clever way to threaten someone on an email. But I think about it. But I think hopefully the book's very accurate. A lot of them will say it isn't. Ultimately, I'm in the storytelling business, and I want to produce a book that no one can put down. And that's what my
well, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I love it.
Killing Goldfinger, the secret bullet riddle life and death of Britain's gangster #1. Fantastic. Wednesday, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Wednesday Clarkson, available for all good bookshops and Amazon and everywhere else, no doubt. We've got some listography to do next.
We certainly have.
Remember that song, of course, from a few years ago?
Yeah.
Gary Newman,
Cars.
Cars, yeah.
He loved cars, by the way, didn't he?
Did he?
He had a collection. Oh, no, aeroplanes. He had a collection of aeroplanes.
Why did he sing a song about planes then?
Well, I don't know, but he definitely used to fly his own little aeroplanes.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyway, this is not about him.
No.
This is about us.
Yes.
This is our little section of the show called Listography.
Absolutely.
Which was named after an ill-fated column in a newspaper.
In New Day.
The New Day, yes, where basically it's 3 things about a particular subject, which we then wax lyrical about. It became quite popular on our shows, so we brought it back. And we took a load of your suggestions earlier on in the day, and we picked this one, which was your favourite 3 car journeys. Now,
car or vehicle journeys?
Well, I suppose it could be vehicles.
Yes,
I mean, it don't have to be cars.
Yes.
I mean, it's better if it's cars.
Yeah,
but,
it is, yeah.
Have you got 3 ready?
Let me see.
Have you got 1 ready? That would do.
I've got 3 ready. I've got 3 ready.
Well, just do the first one.
Right, okay. The first one, I was sent to a job in Portugal where we had to meet the lone sailor sailing across the Atlantic Ocean on his own.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Now, he initially was heading for Cornwall, this guy, okay?
Yeah.
I won't give his name because he wasn't a failure in any way at all. He was very competent and very brave man. He's a former SAS soldier.
Right.
But the tides got him and he missed Cornwall and then he started drifting south. So we worked it out, from the experts that he was going to actually land in Porto.
Yes.
Right? So the thing is,
Jose Mourinho used to be the manager.
Yeah, where Jose Mourinho used to be the manager. So we bought up his wife and little boy.
Yes.
Right.
Now, when you say bought up, we should explain what that means.
What that means is that
for an amount of money, they only exclusively talk to you.
And we're going to take all these great pictures of Tom stepping ashore.
Who?
His first name was Tom. That's all I can say. And
you weren't giving his name.
And the reunion. Holding his little baby in his hand, in his arms. His 21 years old, and as well. I mean, this guy was real, like made of rock. He broke 3 ribs when he climbed up his own mast to try and fix his navigation, and the mast snapped and he came off and broke his ribs on the deck. But he still kept going. I mean, he was an incredible bloke.
Okay.
But the problem was that all the navigation system had gone wrong. So we go down to Porto, and no sign of him.
And were you in touch with him ship to shore or something
Well, this was the problem, you see. His wife knew how to do all that, but we had to get onto a boat. So we went to Porto, got onto a boat, started sailing around, you know, Giltspur. That was her role. That was her, log call.
Okay.
To Giltspur 1, Giltspur 1.
I'm amazed you remember all this
stuff.
stuff.
I know. Giltspur. Well, they were the sponsors, actually.
You know, we're going to do 6 of these stories.
Anyway.
You get on with it.
So, nothing. So we got out of the boat and we said, he's been spotted going to Lisbon. So we got into the hired Mercedes that I'd hired, right? And we went down to Lisbon.
Yes.
We got to Lisbon to be told, no, he has been sighted. He's heading into Porto.
Yes.
So we went back.
Right.
We did this 4 times in
Lisbon
2 days.
To Porto
Lisbon
and back.
to Porto.
And how
Porto.
far is that?
It's about 2.5 hours because the Portuguese roads weren't great in those days. So it was about 10 hours of time. The problem was that his wife, who was a real northern girl, wanted to stop.
We're going against northerners.
Nothing. She wanted to stop every now and then. I need to get a plug for my hairdryer.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, so I said, well, we haven't got time for that. I want a plug for my hairdryer. We went into the shop where they sold plugs. And she said to this bloke who's Portuguese, have you got a plug for my hairdryer? And then when he had no recognition, she started waving her fingers around on her head, hairdryer.
Didn't she just have a hairdryer to show him?
No, it was in the car.
Well, she should have got it out the car.
I wouldn't let her because we didn't have time. Hairdryer.
It's not much of a story about a car trip.
It is a story about a car trip because then I had to rescue her because the bloke thought she was going to shoot him because she was trying to, use hairdryer like that. Get back in the car, and on the last leg of the trip, right, the last 2.5 hours back to find her daddy, the little boy climbed up on my back and vomited all over me as I was driving. And she said, oh,
excellent.
I don't know. I can't take him anywhere, can I?
Shouldn't he have been strapped in?
No, not in those days. There weren't any straps in the car. There weren't any seatbelts, I don't think. No, it's the most horrendous journey of my life.
Sounds awful.
Yeah.
Okay, my first one is going to be driving down, you might remember Route A1A in Florida.
Yes.
Which is the road that goes kind of north-south, all the way basically from the Keys.
Yeah.
All the way up to kind of,
exactly.
The Georgia
sort of Miami
border.
version of 66.
It sort of is, and it just goes all the way north-south. And I'd been sent down to Florida to doorstep, believe it or not, 2 guys coming off the space shuttle.
Right.
So the space shuttle was coming in from space. But I was
That's where they usually come in from.
Yeah. Well, not always. It depends if it's going out the other way, actually.
Yeah.
And it was coming in from space. And when these guys landed, I was meant to get an interview with them because they were the first spacemen to walk in space or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I was first to go there and back on the same.
I don't know if it was that, but
vessel.
they'd done something unusual. So I was supposed to basically talk to them and get an interview.
Yeah.
But of course, NASA wouldn't tell me when they were coming in exactly. They would just say, well, the space shuttle will land at such and such a time. You will then be allowed to come to a press conference, but we can't tell you whether they'll be there. Anyway, I slept in, right? I was staying at this hotel up the road. And I
slept in probably because you were bladderated the night before.
I can't remember what was going on the night before, but I
Yeah.
slept in and I got in the car. It was a rental car, a Cadillac, because I used to always rent Cadillacs because it was just amazing. I had this massive, great big car.
Yeah.
It was like a boat.
Yeah.
And I'm driving it down A1A at about 70 miles an hour, which is over the speed limit.
That's
It's
right, it
55. And I could see the space shuttle coming in.
Wow.
And I was like racing to get there before it landed.
That sounds like the Tom Cruise film.
Well, it was amazing.
As he's getting up to the old
and I kept looking
Miramar.
up, and every time I looked up, it was getting closer and lower in the sky. And eventually, I got there just as it was touching down, because I was listening on the radio. And I got screeched into the compound at NASA. It took me about half an hour to get there. Ran inside the building to get to the press conference. Ran in and made sure that I could, be there in time.
Yeah.
And guess what they did?
Oh.
They put them straight onto a plane and flew them to Houston.
Yeah.
So I never got them.
Yeah, we
In
have
fact-
somebody coming, Houston.
Yeah, so I went in, I said, so when can I see them? They said, well, you can go and see them in Houston if you like, but you can't see them here because they've been flown out.
Yeah,
So I
crikey.
did actually fly down to Houston. It was a great drive, though. I really enjoyed it.
I thought you were going to tell me then you picked up the car and drove round to Houston, but
Well,
that
no,
would
I
take 3 days.
No, I got on a plane and went to Houston.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah.
that's not part of the story.
No, well, it doesn't matter. That sounds like a fascinating
Very exciting.
scenario, seeing the old shuttle come in.
Yeah.
Right, my second one is in America as well. And it was I hadn't been there long when I was asked to go down to Atlantic City to cover a fight. Donald Lee was the American guy, and I can't remember who the English boxer was now, but my face and phone got covered in blood because they got beaten up so badly. Oh, it was terrible. I was ringside, it was horrible, And but anyway, the problem was it was one of those weekends in America when all the planes were down at LaGuardia because of the frost and snow and everything. That's right, couldn't get them off the ground. So old Paul, what's his name from the Mirror?
Paul
Connew.
Yeah.
Says,
he listens to this show, Paul Connew. Be careful
I know. Well, he'll recognise this occasion. So he rang him. You've
got to hurry you as well on this.
No problem. We'll get a stretch.
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, okay." I just thought it was a normal thing, a stretch. Okay, so meet you. And our offices were both in the same building, so the stretch came to the
stretch limousine,
42nd Street. And we got in it, and Paul had arranged for it to be stuffed full of alcohol, booze, wine, champagne. It was fantastic. And off we went off.
There was those lovely crystal glasses.
Lovely crystal glasses, and we went off down to Atlantic City to do this fight, Donald Lee and whoever it was.
Yeah.
So that was brilliant. And then I think I came back on a plane. I think the weather had thawed. We certainly didn't take a stretch back, But then that was Saturday night. So on the Tuesday morning after I got back, the bureau chief, Mr. Philip Finn, God rest in peace, is no longer with us. I mean, I've never seen him more furious. His face was full of thunder, And he said, did you go down to Atlantic...
He spent the month's budget.
Michael, did you go down to Atlantic City in this stretch limousine?
Did he know the woman with the hairdryer?
Yeah, that's right. And I said, well, he came from the same part of the world, Yorkshire.
You're going to use that all the time in a minute.
And I said, yeah. And he was furious because Paul Connew had put the bill on our account.
Yeah, right.
And we paid for the whole lot.
Very sensible.
And he was very upset.
Quite right, too. Now, I'm going to limit it and say there's only 2 each now because we've used up so much time with your telling of the stories. They've been so elongated.
No, they've been
I'm
so
going to have room
good.
for one more.
Right.
But before I do that, I should tell you, Julia had tweeted earlier to say, don't forget the car journey you took with me, MG, to that dump, the Grosvenor Hotel, which was in Rugby. After we finished the show in Rugby, very kindly, her husband and her gave us a lift back to the hotel.
Yeah,
the worst hotel.
Gave you a lift back, didn't give me a lift back.
Yeah, no, because you'd already gone back.
I walked back.
Because you already went home early.
That's right,
but my second trip is one that I took at Silverstone, actually,
Yes.
because I went to Silverstone. I was sent there to learn how to drive a rally car.
Really?
And I got to drive around a rally course with this instructor. It was in a Ford Escort.
Sounds great.
And it had all the... you had to put a crash helmet on. It had all the stuff, like the iron bars, so in case it turned over, you didn't get killed. And it was one of the most fantastic experiences I've ever done. He taught me how to do handbrake turns at sort of 45 miles an hour. Taught me how to handle the understeer, the oversteer, how to skid a car around a corner.
Brilliant.
It was one of the most exciting driving experiences of my life. And then he said, when I did it, after I'd done it around about 45 miles an hour, he said, now I'll show you how you really do it. And he drove the car around the course at 90. With me sitting next to him, and it was absolutely exhilarating, but terrifying at the same time.
It shouldn't have been terrifying if you had an expert driver in the car. You must have known nothing was going to happen.
Well, yeah, but still, when a guy's driving at 90 miles an hour straight for a wall,
yes,
because just before he gets to the wall, he's going to do a handbrake turn and turn, in an L shape, you still think it's going to hit the wall.
Well, unless the guy's a kamikaze pilot in disguise, I think you're going to be okay.
I was okay, but it was very exciting.
Excellent.
That was lithography, shortened for purposes of time.
Yes.
The British and Irish Lions Tour of New Zealand 2017 on talkSPORT. On location with the Times and the Sunday Times. Quality coverage of the entire Lions Tour from leading writers and ex-players.
The British and Irish Lions were in action this morning with a clash against the Highlanders. Here to dissect the Lions' performance is Owen Slott, Chief Rugby Correspondent from The Times. Owen, a very good afternoon to you, and not such a great night down there, I guess.
No, really, really disappointing. The Lions went into the game with the momentum of the win from last Saturday and everyone feeling positive, and just that whole feeling that this tour was on a roll and that they were picking up and gaining momentum and getting better as each game went along. And this game sort of has brought that to a bit of a halt, really. The Lions had a chance to win but weren't good enough. They deserved to lose, but they could and should have won. They made too many mistakes, and they didn't really learn from their mistakes from last week. So really disappointing. One thing that if you're sort of looking for hope, that though it's a strange hope to take from this game, is that the team that lost today is looking increasingly like the midweek team or the B team, if you like. So the A team won on Saturday, and this B team, players who were playing today were hoping to press their case to be moved into the Saturday team, which would be the Test match team. But there appears to be a gulf between the two. So you look at today's team when they lost, and that does take away the momentum. But you can look at it and go, well, it is the B team, so maybe it doesn't have that much impact on the big thing, which is the Test series, which starts in 11 days' time.
But Owen, when we spoke the other day, we did say, and we both agreed, that some of these games have got to be used to experiment. Were there any useful experiments today that you think will prove valuable for the future games?
I'm struggling to give you a really juicy morsel of something to chew on.
Yeah, sure.
That's what you want. You want you can take a defeat, but you want to be going, yeah, but this happened, and they experimented with that tactic and it worked well. And I could pick out there were a few players that did do well. So for the standout player for me was Ian Henderson, the Irish lock forward, who was disappointing in his first game, but he really stood out today. So he came through. The two Welsh halfbacks, Rhys Webb and Dan Biggar, they played well as well. So they came through. The English lock forward, Kyle Sinclair, he had a good game as well. You're picking out individuals rather than phases of the game or particular elements of the game that you think, they've really come on a pace.
Yeah. Sam Warburton got a try as well, Owen. And I mean, are you saying that you don't think he's part of the finest 15 that they're going to put out against New Zealand?
I think a disappointing conclusion from today is that he's just not ready. He said himself that he thought it was probably unlikely that he would be because he's had too many injuries. And today he did score the try. That was the one moment that really he stood out. If you followed him, if you put a player cam on him throughout the game, then you wouldn't have seen a lot of stuff. He struggled with the pace of the game. He's just not ready yet. So that's disappointing. Maybe he'll be ready for the second test or the third test. It's not the end of the world. There are other decent players in his position, but I would now be very surprised if his name start in the first test next week.
Okay, Owen, thank you very much indeed. That was Owen Slot from the Times, live from Dunedin. Yeah. Pick up your copy of the Times and the Sunday Times during the Lions tour for more quality analysis.
The British and Irish Lions Tour of New Zealand 2017 on talkSPORT. On location with the Times and the Sunday Times. Pick up your copy throughout the Lions Tour for insightful commentary and analysis.
Right, OK, now this is the Two Mics. We are, of course, on talkSPORT and we are, of course, with Wix. Now, right now, there's a 3 for 2 across gardens and landscaping, including all decking and wood care.
That's right. And there's another game coming up for the British and Irish Lions on Saturday, 17th of June. That'll be right here on talkSPORT, of course, against the Maori All Blacks, 8:35 in the morning.
That's right.
Now, a couple of interesting tweets here for you. One from Gabriel, who says, 10 hours in a car with Porky in Portugal. Ye gods. What on earth did you talk about? Well, I suppose once you were dodging the woman with the hairdryer and the vomiting child.
Hairdryer. Well, you're so bloody stupid. Where's my hairdryer plug?
Michael says, tell Mike Parry that the sailor's name is Tom McLean. He now runs an adventure centre near Mallaig in Scotland.
He does, and he's so good at what he does, Tom, that the army send people there to,
So why didn't you want to mention his name then?
Well, only because, I didn't really want to think that I should identify the fact that his wife and his little boy...
Oh, so now you're worried he's going to come after you because you made fun of them?
No, I haven't made fun of them at all. I've just given an accurate account of what went on. Tom was also, by the way, the guy who tried to get onto Lundy Island. Is Lundy Island up there, or is that in the Bristol Channel?
No, Lundy is off the coast of Devon.
It's off the coast of Devon.
Yeah.
Well,
it's about as far away from the west coast of Scotland as you can imagine.
All right, well, there's a big rock up there, right? And Tom made a bid to get on it to declare, British sovereignty for it.
Lundy?
No, not Lundy. The rock up in the northwest of Scotland, right?
Well, who does it belong to?
Well, this is the point. I think the Icelandics were trying to say it was theirs.
Really?
Oh, it's only about as big as this room.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm certain. And the thing is that...
Well, it's probably nearer Iceland than Scotland.
No, it wasn't. But the thing is that it was so dangerous to get on it that nobody had ever tried. You see what I mean?
I see,
But then the Icelandics said, we'll have it, because the waves would roll in at about 40 miles an hour and smash anything against the cliff that tried to get on board, fish and everything else. But he still got on. He was the only guy who's ever got onto this bit of rock, because he's so hard, you know. That,
well, maybe we'll have to explore this a bit later when we've got more time. Because we haven't got any time now. We're right out of time.
Absolutely.
This is the Two Mics on talkSPORT with Wix. Every day we give away a £100 Wix gift card to the best best caller. And today, just to prove our generosity, right, despite the fact that Phil, the Man City fan, accused me of being anti-Man City and anti-Northern and everything else, we're going to give it to him. So well done, Phil, the Man City fan. £100 Wix gift card coming your way. This is talkSPORT.
With the lads, Newcastle, and the eastern sun is rising in the sky. It's China on the time.
Don't forget to follow the Two Mics at the Two Mics on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mics TV.